So it's more a political and empathic relation with the victims what drives me.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja Coelho. CBC News is next.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio, live from downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us wherever you're making time for us today. If you did have a long weekend, as I did, I hope you had a really good one. Although a little bit cold, but some rain and some much-needed changes in the wildfire situation, of course, as people begin to return in some places to their homes and their seasonal residences and properties. In Winnipeg today, we can tell you it's going to be cloudy and a nice high of 15 degrees, which is pretty seasonal for this time of year. Welcome to Tuesday, May 20th. The morning show is on until 8:37 a.m. Corey Funk is directing the show. Good morning, Corey. Corey will cover the commute on air. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi, our senior tech behind the controls, also will be on the air with the weather forecast. And good morning to Brad Lillies, waving hello to you on YouTube this morning. He is our producer of our visual stream. All right, Heather Wells is here too. 2 minutes to 6. She's here with headlines.
Evacuees from Whiteshell Provincial Park say they still don't know when they can return home. A wildfire near the Ontario border forced people out last week. Ken Pickering, president of the Whiteshell Cottagers Association, says locals are anxious but understanding. Winnipeggers missing those backyard bonfires and fireworks can soon spark up again, actually now, because the city's burn ban expired yesterday. Assistant Fire Chief Lisa Gilmore says the recent wet weather made it unnecessary to extend the fire ban. We'll hear more Manitoba News coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the program today, in the first hour of the show, we have something light and lovely. A Manitoba father is hoping to help his daughter become the queen of beekeeping. So we're going to hear more about what that's all about. To serious matters, you've been hearing likely in the news about another postal strike that could be happening. Canada Post says the union representing postal workers says they're ready to walk out on Friday. We will hear more on World Report in moments, and then we will walk you through exactly what's going on right now with that. And then Heather was mentioning some news around the fire zones. We're going to lean into some of the good news. After nearly a week spent away from home, the Arm of Piney residents are allowed to return. So we're going to have a little bit more on that story. Later in the program, a Manitoba teacher taking a year off to race around the world in a sailboat. And she doesn't have a lick of experience on the water. So CBC's Corey Funk has that story for us a little later. Right now, though, World Report, 1 minute to 6.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Julie Taymor completely changed the game in theater, bringing animals to life in Disney's massive The Lion King musical. Julie will share the stories behind that production, including how a ceremony she witnessed in Bali, Indonesia, changed everything for her. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada Post is once again on the verge of shutting down. Cup W represents 55,000 workers. The union says members are ready to walk off the job Friday morning. As Georgie Smythe reports, that would extend the job action that started before Christmas last year.
We didn't take that decision lightly to go out onto the picket line. But
Kate Holowatiak is the president at Canadian Union of Postal Workers Victoria. She says her members want to lock in a collective agreement with Canada Post and end the months of back and forth talks.
Canada Post walked away from the table again last week. I think that's about the third time through this process that they've walked away from the table. And they also indicated that they may change our working conditions.
The two parties had been working under a collective agreement that was extended after job action before Christmas last year. It expires on Friday. John Hamilton is a spokesperson for Canada Post. He says a report released last week shows the service needs an overhaul.
We need to be making a number of changes, starting with negotiating agreements that reflect the realities of 2025.
Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business and says acting on the report's recommendations could mean big disruptions too.
Restructuring means making Canada Post much, much smaller. This means layoffs of thousands and thousands of workers.
Both sides say they still hope to return to the bargaining table, but if no agreement is reached, operations including mail and parcel delivery could shut down by the end of the week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing back against Canada and other countries who have been calling for Israel to stop its military offensive in Gaza and allow more aid into the Palestinian territory. Netanyahu is calling their public statement a huge prize for Hamas. He says all European leaders should follow U.S. President Donald Trump's example in supporting Israel. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, remind us exactly what Canada and these other countries said yesterday.
Marcia, Canada's latest positions on this came in the form of two joint statements with other allies. First, the statement from the leaders of Canada, the United Kingdom, and France that strongly opposed the expansion of Israel's military operations in Gaza and called the level of human suffering there intolerable, condemning as wholly inadequate Israel's move over the weekend to allow in only a basic quantity of food aid. Separately, foreign ministers from 22 countries as well as EU aid groups were also condemning Israel's new model for delivering aid into Gaza, noting that the UN doesn't believe it's going to be effective and move the food at the speed and scale required. It also said that humanitarian aid should never be politicized, while Palestinian territory must not be reduced or subjected to demographic change. Now, the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs, that's a Canadian group supportive of Israel, said the fact that Hamas had applauded the joint statement spoke volumes about its misguided premise. It said that the position that Canada was taking with its allies gives Hamas incentive to continue rejecting a negotiated agreement.
It is early days for the Carney government, and people are watching to see if there will be a shift in policy on the Middle East. What is being said so far?
Well, in her first media scrum after becoming foreign minister last Wednesday, Anita Anand said that Canada wouldn't allow the continued use of food as a political tool, but she upset Jewish groups by also not acknowledging that it was the Hamas attack on Israel in 2023 that started the war. When Mark Carney met Israel's president on the sidelines of the Pope's inaugural Mass at the Vatican on Sunday, the readout from that meeting was clear that Carney had reiterated the need for Hamas to release all hostages and lay down all its weapons.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Multiple explosions rocked southern Gaza this morning. Israel's military says it has struck more than 650 Hamas targets over the past week, part of its new operation aimed at eliminating Hamas military capabilities. Local medical workers say more than 500 people have been killed in the past 8 days. Ceasefire talks are still going in Doha. This morning, Qatar's prime minister said the talks have led nowhere because the parties have fundamental differences. Police have reopened the case of two men who drowned off the shores of Lake Ontario 10 years ago. New evidence disproved theories from the initial investigation. As Nicole Williams tells us, the two men's families are hoping this will finally bring them justice.
Nothing's the same as it was before.
10 years ago, Jenny Wanamaker lost her brother, 26-year-old Matty Fairman. He had gone out spearfishing on the Bay of Quinte with his friend Tyler Miracle, both of Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, about halfway from Ottawa to Toronto.
They said they were going out for probably an hour.
But neither made it home. Their bodies found in the waters nearly 2 weeks later by some fishers. Their boat discovered at the bottom of the bay, connected to a net full of rotting fish that had belonged to someone else. Police believe the two had cut the net and tried to haul in the fish, overloading their boat, causing it to sink and the two men to drown. Ontario's chief coroner, Dr. Dirk Heyer, now says that's wrong.
We don't actually know what happened.
That's because of new evidence from an investigation by the Aboriginal People's Television Network. They put Miracle's boat through a series of tests, including loading it with more than twice the weight of fish police say was in the net at the time. It never sank. Follow-up tests by the coroner's office confirmed the results. Now Ontario Provincial Police ordered the case be reopened, but this time by Toronto Police, a relief to the families who have lived the last decade in anguish. Tammy Miracle was Tyler's mom.
You don't enjoy life anymore because you enjoyed life with him.
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Tyendinaga, Ontario.
Top finance officials from G7 countries will be in Banff this week for a summit. It is a precursor to the G7 Leaders Summit next month, and it's being led by Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne alongside Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem. The talks are scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday, and Champagne's spokesperson says it is an opportunity for countries to work together despite tensions over U.S. tariffs. The White House has not confirmed who's attending on its behalf. Diplomats are calling this a victory for global cooperation.
The draft resolution is therefore approved by 124 votes.
This morning, members of the World Health Organization voted overwhelmingly in favor of a global treaty on improving pandemic preparedness. The agreement encourages countries to share critical research, medicines, and vaccines, and helps ensure poorer countries have access to those products. It took 3 years to negotiate, but there are no penalties for countries who don't follow the agreement. Canadians could be getting hip and knee replacement surgeries faster. That is what new research published by the Canadian Medical Association Journal suggests. And as Christine Birak tells us, experts say it could happen without an increase in funding or new operating rooms.
We have all the resources there. We have the people. We have the funding.
Dr. David Urbach, head of surgery at Women's College Hospital in Toronto, co-authored the study. Using data from over 17,000 procedures in Ontario, researchers simulated wait times by region. They found prolonged wait times for hip and knee replacements could be eliminated by replacing referrals with a single wait list that sends patients to the next available specialist for consultation and the surgery.
We could actually get everybody who needs a joint replacement, we can get them to surgery quickly. All we have to do is reorganize how patients flow through the system.
Data shows centralized wait lists in one region led to 90% of patients having their consultation and surgery in about 6 months rather than a year. But it means surgeons would largely give up control of their own wait lists.
Getting your patients through the system is certainly a lot more important than having the pride of a longer wait list.
Dr. Olufemi Ayeni is head of the Canadian Orthopedic Association. He says surgeons are open to change.
But I think without surgeon input or patient input into these systems, then you may have a muted response as to what is truly adopted in the future.
If it's shown to be effective, I support any measure that actually reduces wait times.
56-year-old Tina Moffat spent over a year in agonizing pain awaiting hip surgery. Change takes time, but she says too many patients can't get their surgeries fast enough. Christine Birak, CBC News, Binbrook, Ontario.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and this is Information Radio on CBC. We're live downtown on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Well, we did have a beautiful sky this morning, really sort of vibrant pinks and magentas. Now that's turned to cloud cover. We'll get you through today's forecast in just a moment. This hour on the program, a Manitoba father is sharing a honey of a career, and he's passing it on to his daughter. We're going to find out more about that lovely story. Also, we'll build on what is not going to be lovely, no matter where you look at it or how you look at it. I'm talking about the potential of a Canada Post strike. You just heard that on World Report. We're going to have more analysis coming up this half hour about where we're at with that. And then at 6:40, good news for some in southern Manitoba. After nearly a week spent away from home, Arm of Piney residents are allowed to return. And we have some more details and a story about that this hour as well. So stay with us. to get the latest on the fires and on other stories as well. Heather Wells is here with headlines this morning. Hi.
Hi there. Well, a report written 4 years ago raised concerns about what could happen in Whiteshell Provincial Park if a massive wildfire was to hit. It said the park was a tinderbox that could be in danger of heavy losses. The report making a number of recommendations. It does not appear any have been implemented. A Winnipeg brewery owner is calling on Manitoba and Ontario to drop trade barriers for beer producers. Last week, Manitoba's Wab Canoe and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to increase interprovincial trade. That includes some changes to direct-to-consumer alcohol sales. But Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug says it may help wineries that sell single bottles to customers, but it does not help breweries like his that sell products by the pallet. We'll hear more from him in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, seasonal high, I got wrong. I actually said we're going to be 15 today. That's correct, as you'll hear in a moment. But I said that should be around seasonal. Heather's reminding me seasonal is about 21 degrees. So we're going to be below that. What a time we've had of it. Last week at this time, we were over 30, and now today we're just going to try to get to 15. What else do we know about the forecast, Abby Adiyemi?
Yeah, it's going to be cloudy across most of the regions in the southern parts of the province. We do have rain in Brandon and towards the U.S. border this time. The southern region will see mostly cloudy conditions with temperatures hovering around between 5 and 9 degrees. And most of those regions will also see highs close to 15 degrees. Most places will stay cloudy with some light rain possible, mainly towards the western parts of the province and the Parkland region. And up north, we're going to see cooler temperatures. Temperatures currently at this time between 0 and 7. Right now, Winnipeg, 9 degrees, cloudy skies. We're heading to a high of 15.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey's here to talk about the morning commute.
Yeah, we actually already got a call from Mandeep. He said that there's a water main break on Sentry between Ellis and Sargent. So quite a bit of deep water you find yourself driving through. So the key is to slow down there. You can drive through it, but if you drive too fast, obviously it splashes up in your face. You might hydroplane. I didn't see any crews on scene there as of about 20 minutes ago when he called, but that may still be an issue for folks. So a heads up there. If you see anything else on that or anything else out there on the commute, if you're walking, bike, and driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
That, of course, was Corey Funk, and big thanks to Corey for hosting the show yesterday. We will, by the way, have a fire update for you. Pardon me, having a cough there. We will have a fire update for you coming up at 6:40. I'm just going to go through all the regions and let you know where we are beginning this Tuesday morning. Right now on the show, let's turn to something completely different. Actually, I'm going to get Corey to come and help me. Corey. I don't know where he's gone. Pardon me.
Marcy seems to be having
I am Abby. I'm wondering, Corey, I'm wondering if you can actually read this.
Corey's just grabbing a glass of water, and then we're going to take it on to our next.
For the fire update here. All right. Well, sorry. Oh, the intro, yes. Well, it's been a tough year for bee producers in Manitoba with big losses over the winter and a cold, hard spring. Manitoba Beekeeper Association chairperson Ian Stepler has been working hard in his apiary in Miami, Manitoba to bring his hives back and welcome his 18-year-old daughter into the business. Now or never, as Trevor Deneen went for a visit.
So we're just lighting the smoker right now. Smoke, it'll calm the bees, so it just allows us to get into the nests and work the bees without them getting too aggressive.
Ian Stepler and his 18-year-old daughter April are walking casually towards a row of boxes that contains about 50,000 bees, and I am trying to stay as calm as possible as I follow behind them, even though I'm suited up.
You want to take your boots off so you can get your feet through because you have this elastic at the bottom.
This is an official beekeeper suit. This suit's been inspected, no holes, no open gaps.
It is a working suit, so there might be a tear.
Are you coming to work for us?
Yeah. I will do whatever you need me to do today. You tell me what to do and I will do it.
Now that we're here in the apiary and Ian's prying the lid off of a colony, I'm really not sure I should have made that offer. So I'm glad when April steps in to help, pulls out the frames teeming with bees, and examines them up close. Ooh. So how many bees are in here? Oh my good God.
There will be,
oh my God.
There'll be 25, probably 30,000 bees within this nest right now.
Why do you not have gloves on? What are you doing?
Well, as you can see there, we're just going to give them a bit of smoke, and that's just going to let them know that we're here.
Hey bees, we're friends. Look at that, you're just rubbing them you're petting them as if they're a dog. What's happening?
You see on the bottom of the cells, there's just a little wee shine. That's larvae that's just freshly hatched from the egg. So this frame is very young brood. This is a very nice frame.
Is it because of the smoker that they're not reacting when you touch them, or that we're even here?
The smoke is helping quite a bit. Yeah, but at the same time, they're bringing in pollen, and they're well fed, so they're happy bees right now. It's a very nice day.
Ian has spent the past 25 years trying to keep bees happy. He grew up here on this beautiful farm in Miami, Manitoba, where the Stepler family has been working the land for 100 years. But beekeeping is new here, a business Ian began almost by accident.
When I graduated from high school, Mom and Dad sent me off to university to take the Diploma of Agriculture. I didn't want to, I just wanted a farm, but they said, no, get off the farm, have some fun. So I did. Second year, I needed 2 credits to pass because I didn't plan very well. So I had a choice between Dairy Lab with 4 credits or this beekeeping course, this obscure beekeeping course for 2 credits. And actually I laughed at it when I first seen it. But the problem was it was like an evening course as on a Wednesday night, and that was campus bar night. And it's like, no, we can't do this. It's a conflict here. But my buddy said, no, listen, we'll go to take this beekeeping course and we'll go to the pub afterwards. And I figured, okay, that's probably going to work out.
Today, Ian is the chair of the Manitoba Beekeepers Association with 80 million bees on his payroll. And this year, for the first time, April has her own hive that she's managing, even though this season has not been great for the bees.
There's a lot of eggs in here. Every cell has something in it.
There's a lot of eggs in this one too.
Is she on there? She's a little bit of an older queen, right?
She's a couple of years old, yeah. So we might want to replace her, but you'll have to buy her.
Yeah, or make her.
You could make a queen.
Once you teach me. Yeah. I work for my dad in the bee farm for the past 4 years now.
Has it been 4 years already?
This is my 4th year, yeah.
Yeah? What's it like working for your dad?
It's pretty great. He's kind of a hard boss. But no, I'm just kidding. He's a great boss.
Well, you work hard, so.
What did that mean for you when all of a sudden you saw her taking more of an interest? Were you excited by it? Were you kind of worried about it?
Well, I always say beekeepers are opportunists, kind of like bees. They take the opportunity of what nature has and they bring it in, they make something of it. I kind of see that in you. You see the opportunities in front of you and you want to maybe capitalize on it too. We'll see how it works out. Maybe you won't want to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe you do. But it's not for everybody. Like farming isn't for everybody. It's not a predictable livelihood. It's just kind of one of those things that's in flux.
Does that worry you at all when you come and look at like the way things, like how have things been trending the last couple summers?
Well, that's a concern for sure. I talked to a lot of beekeepers across Manitoba, and this spring's been a hard spring for a lot of beekeepers because of the loss. You know, and I struggled a little bit too this spring with some loss, and we worked hard to get these colonies to where they are right now. And I'm thinking, boy, you know, to bring my daughter into a business where there's hardship, you know, to bring her into something that might not pan out. That's a hard thing. It's very intimidating. But I remember when I went to university, like the farm was in hardship at that time too. But I remember Dad, he's always that positive attitude, optimistic, right? Mm-hmm. And that's very important for a primary producer, is just that optimism and just looking to see how we can, overcome the challenges. So to have someone interested in a livelihood like that it's makes me feel really good, because I put a lot of years into this business. To see someone who might be able to take the business the next step and maybe feel the way I feel it makes me happy. Yeah.
For you, when you hear your dad talk about the hardship, do you worry about times like that, just starting out?
Yeah, I do. Like, starting off with a small hives, obviously, too, you're worried about even 100% loss. Mm-hmm. And I do know that there is going to be, farming is a hard business, and there's going to be lots of challenges. But I'm just glad that I have my dad and my grandpa and stuff, people like that who have gone through that and can help me with these experiences.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's the support that makes a business, like the family business. When I started beekeeping, it was my dad's support and the farm support, and you'll have the same support behind you to be able to move things ahead.
Seeing where my dad has already taken the beekeeping business to where it is now, I'm hoping that I can take the business and with my dad become equal managers and just double the operation and grow.
You make me tired.
Yeah, until Leah comes along. And then you can have a break. Yeah, then triple.
And that's the spirit of a beekeeper, actually. It's growth. You always start with one colony, and then you have 2, and then before you know it, you have 12, and then you have 120, and there's just that opportunity to just keep what you want more of it. It's an amazing thing, yeah. So that's why she's going to make a good beekeeper.
So that was Ian and April Stepler. They're beekeepers in Miami, Manitoba. Trevor Deneen, by the way, brought us that story, co-host of CBC's Now or Never. You can check out their podcast on your favorite app.
The richness of cultures celebrated in film and the action, romance, comedy, and documentaries you love to watch. Fascination Film Festival is coming to Winnipeg, and you're invited. The talents of Asian Canadian and Asian American filmmakers highlighted in one film festival. Connect and get inspired at Fascination Film Festival, May 22nd to 25th, proudly sponsored by CBC. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
6:23 a.m. is the time right now. A high of 15 degrees with lots of cloud cover out there in Winnipeg currently this morning. Thanks for being with us on CBC. And of course, thanks to my buddies Corey and Abby for helping me out there. My voice gets a little wonky sometimes after, 25 years on the air. I got a pesky little vocal cord there, so thanks you guys. Next on the show, let's talk about Canada Post. It's on a lot of our minds, of course, now that we're hearing that there's strike notices from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. That's what Canada Post says. The notices say that the union plans to strike starting on Friday. So this is after Canada Post, remember, paused contract negotiation talks after what was going on around the holiday season. Now, Marvin Ryder's here to set us up for what might come next. He's Associate Professor of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at the DeGroote School of Business. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So before we go to what might come next, catch us up on all of these latest developments. How did we get to this point this morning?
Sure. This is like reviewing The White Lotus season 4. So let's just go back to Thursday. That was the day that the federal mediator, William Kaplan, submitted his report. Mr. Kaplan had been asked to look at 2 things. First, why were the 2 sides unable to reach an agreement back in November, December? And also, what did he see as the future of Canada Post? So he submitted the report on Thursday. It was reviewed by the federal minister and then released publicly Friday morning. The first out of the gate was Canada Post management. They said, this is a great report. We agree with its recommendations and we'll go try to implement it. But we didn't hear anything from the union until the weekend. And then on the weekend, the union said, we reject the report completely. It feels like Mr. Kaplan was brainwashed by management. He ignored our concerns. And not only do we reject the report, but this is when they issued the strike mandate for 12:01 a.m. Friday morning. We have 72 hours to have some negotiations happen, but it doesn't look good that much can be done given how much the union seems to want to strike.
Now, on Friday, the government appointed the mediator and made public the report, as you've been outlining here, on the labor dispute. What are the outstanding issues since the last strike, then?
Yeah, most people would think maybe this is all about economics. We saw in 2024 a number of strikes that were about compensation, people trying to play catch up, given the high inflation that we had seen a few years ago. But that isn't the case here. Both sides are pretty close on the compensation side. Instead, what the mediator noted, he said, I think all 3 parties have to give up something. First, he pointed to the federal government and he said, you've got to allow Canada Post to, where it's appropriate, get rid of door-to-door mail delivery in favor of community mailboxes, which are much more efficient. And number two, where appropriate, close some rural post offices in favor of kiosks inside of private sector stores like a drugstore, something like that. Then he turned to the union and he said, I know your position is status quo, but that's not working. This is a company that lost $5 billion over the last lost $3 billion over the last 5 years. And also earlier this year needed a $1 billion line of credit because of its cash flow problems. Status quo isn't working. It's got to be more competitive on the parcel side, which means 7-day-a-week parcel delivery. And that also means part-time workers. But then he turned to management and he said, now look, fine that you want those part-time workers, but you can't bring them in at a lower pay rate. You can't create 2 tiers of employment. You're going to have to treat them just as you would a full-time worker when you bring them in. So everyone's got to give up something to make Canada Post a healthier company.
This is about, modernizing the system is the term that we were hearing a lot. The first go around, well, it wasn't necessarily the first, but the last go around in December. And now, obviously, what you're saying is that the union's saying status quo, we don't want to change. So you've outlined, in your view, how everybody's going to have to give. Some have been floating, of course, in all of this, the idea of actually privatizing Canada Post. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't see how privatization helps you. I think the average person might not realize that as a crown corporation, Canada Post receives no funding from the federal government. None of your tax dollars go to support it. So in that sense, it's already operating like a private company, and it's been doing it for 3 decades. For the first 25 of those 30 years, Canada Post was effective, so effective that it was profitable, and it generated a dividend to its owner, in this case, the Canadian federal government. It's really the last 5 years where things have changed, and that is us more than it is Canada Post. You and I don't mail things the way we once did. You don't mail Christmas cards, you don't mail birthday cards, you don't send a letter, you don't pay your bills by mail. You do everything electronically. So we've seen that volume of letter mail go down. The only bright spot is parcel mail. And there, it does not have a monopoly. Canada Post has to compete against private sector companies like FedEx and UPS. And right now, it's just not competitive. So privatization wouldn't change any of that. It really is recognizing what Canada Post has to do to compete against the private sector in that parcel mail side.
Can they catch up at this rate? I guess that's a big question.
Well, Mediator Kaplan said he wasn't sure that doing all the things he recommended would return Canada Post to profitability. But if I could reduce the losses from nearly $1 billion a year to only $100 million, that gets you a long ways towards where you need to be. Now, the union has suggested introducing some new products, like, for instance, postal banking, or maybe doing health checks on seniors who are home alone. What Mr. Kaplan said is, I don't think this is the time to be doing those new products. Let's get the core business stable. If we get close to balancing the books, then yes, we could look at those new products then. But right now, you need much more substantial change than those are going to give us.
Obviously, we'll see what the impact's going to be on businesses and on individuals as well across the country. Just last briefly, I've got the news coming up in 30 seconds here, but do you think it's likely the government could step in? We have new people now.
Yes. So a couple quick things. Obviously, we have different players at the table than we did in November, December, a different prime minister in Mark Carney. We don't have a minister of labor anymore. We have a minister of jobs. That's a new person in there. I think it's possible, yes, if this strike were to go on for a week or two, that they would order them back and they would impose binding arbitration. And if I'm the union, I would be worried about this, because the arbitrator is likely going to follow pretty much what Mr. Kaplan suggested. He's a skilled arbitrator mediator himself. And if this is the direction he sees, I think the union would be much better advised to negotiate what it can, chip away where it can, but make a settlement. Don't make the government step in.
All right. We'll have more on this in our business report after the news. Thanks very much, Marvin.
Glad to be with you.
That's Marvin Ryder, Associate Professor of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at the DeGroote School of Business. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 9 degrees. Still getting that cool feeling in Winnipeg. A cloudy day on the way with a high of just 15. A report from 2021 raised concerns about what could happen in Whiteshell Provincial Park if a massive wildfire was to hit. That report found the end result could be devastating. Details from CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargood.
Manitoba experts simulated an out-of-control wildfire in Whiteshell Provincial Park and 20 kilometers around it. They found Falcon Lake, Rennie and Pointe du Bois would be most at risk of catastrophic loss and damage because of one-lane narrow roadways in and out of those areas, dense tree lines, and numerous lakes that would make it difficult to escape in the event of an emergency. Officials made 10 recommendations, like creating safety zones for people to get to if they were unable to get out, and conducting controlled burns to remove pests and vegetation. But it doesn't appear any of the recommendations have been implemented. The province would only say a number of factors have changed since the 2021 report, and that many of the recommendations are ongoing. Officials also said the current fire situation will inform future steps. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Evacuees from Whiteshell Provincial Park say they don't know when they can go home. The province closed the park last week as that wildfire near the Ontario border edged closer. Ken Pickering, president of the Whiteshell Cottagers Association, says residents and cottagers are still waiting for more information.
As long as everyone kind of stays out of the park and lets the firefighters do their thing, and we'll kind of wait for updates from both Parks and Wildfire Services to see what next steps are.
Pickering says most people understand the need not to return until it's safe. In its latest update, the province says Manitoba Wildfire Service continues to respond to 13 active wildfires across the province. A Winnipeg brewery owner says Manitoba and Ontario's promise to increase trade won't help beer producers. Last week, Premier Rob Canoe and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to remove interprovincial trade barriers. That includes some changes to alcohol sales between the provinces. Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug doesn't expect breweries will benefit.
These MOUs are encouraging, but every one of them, the one with Manitoba, the one with New Brunswick, the one with Nova Scotia, all talk about direct-to-consumer sales of alcohol, which doesn't really help the mini beer producers in Canada.
Selch hopes Canada's premiers can reach a deal to allow local breweries to sell their products on store shelves across the country. Well, as we've been hearing, the clock is ticking on a new strike by Canada Post workers. 55,000 unionized employees could walk off the job starting this Friday. Kate Holowadiak is with the Canadian Union of Postal Employees Victoria Local.
There's definitely still time. 72 hours notice can be a long time, especially when so many conversations have already been had about these issues.
The latest threat follows a strike last November and December that lasted 32 days. That job action ended when the Canada Industrial Relations Board ordered the two sides back to work December 15th during the busy Christmas mailing season. The current collective agreement was extended until this Thursday. John Hamilton speaks for Canada Post.
We need to negotiate an agreement and not have another strike, because it would be debilitating to the Canadian economy at a time where it just doesn't need it, and it would only worsen our financial situation, which is, to the tune of $1 billion in losses a year.
The union and Postal Service have been holding talks, but without much progress. Last week, a federally commissioned report on Canada Post recommended major changes, including the end of daily door-to-door letter mail delivery for individuals. You can hear the latest on this story coming up on the Business Report after this newscast, but you can also hear more coming up on World Report at 7. Well, Winnipeg's fire ban has expired, but firefighters still urge caution. The ban went into effect May 5th and expired yesterday. Lisa Gilmore, assistant chief with the Winnipeg firefighters, says this recent wet weather made it unnecessary to extend the ban, but conditions are still drier than normal.
We are asking everybody to still be safe and to still be considerate if they are doing outdoor firework. So you still have to follow the regular bylaws. You still have to have a a fire pit that meets requirements, and you can't use it if the winds are too high.
Fire pits, including those in city parks, are once again permitted. So are wood and charcoal burning barbecues. The city asks that you always have a way to put out a fire within arm's reach. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather, I haven't been on the air since the Jets lost, so I just want to take a second.
Yeah. Do you know what? And what a tearful kind of loss that was.
Yeah, absolutely. But also beautiful. I think a lot of us were like waiting for Scheifele to score the overtime winner, right? Like at that moment. And then, of course, the game ended and the penalty. We all know what happened. But you know what? Class act by Dallas. I'm sure you guys talked about this yesterday and on the weekend already a lot. But the way they treated him. Beautiful lineup at the end, of course, ending that series with Dallas. And then, and Toronto's also out now. And so I guess... what are our hopes on Edmonton?
Well, Edmonton, we've got Edmonton on one side. These are my hopes. We've Florida against Carolina. I'm picking Florida. And then Edmonton against Dallas. And of course, I think we all want Edmonton to win.
Oh, we'll see what happens next. Anyway, good for the Jets. What a season. It's not like they went out and everybody went, oh, that was terrible hockey. It was really good hockey.
Yeah. And by contrast, I don't know if you've seen the way Toronto fans reacted to the Leafs being eliminated. It was kind of mean.
They're pretty hard on them though, right? Yeah. If they're down in a game, they start booing them. I don't think Jets fans might look frustrated and walk out, but it's just not our style.
Well, so. and on social media, like burning jerseys.
Oh, I didn't see that. Ouch, for sure. All right, thanks, Heath.
You're welcome.
23 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's get to what's happening in our forecast. It's time for your regional forecast. Abby Adiemi is going to walk us around the province.
Good morning once again from south, tracking it all the way up north. We're expecting mostly cloudy skies with some rain in the Westman region and the Parkland regions, while other regions will stay dry and mild. In the Red River Valley region at this time, we're seeing temperatures around 9 degrees, cloudy outside. The day starts with mostly cloudy conditions, but it's dry with mild to breezy winds coming from the east. We will be seeing temperatures warm up to 15 degrees by the afternoon period. In the Pembina Valley region, from Modern Winkler out to the Morris down to the U.S. border, the region is seeing a period of rain to start the day. This would then transition to cloudy conditions. We'll see temperatures get to 5 degrees for that part of the province at this time, and then warms up to 11 later. Brandon is at 5 degrees. Steady rain falling at this time. Expect windy conditions from the east. Highs would get to 6 degrees, though the rain will ease later tonight, then becoming cloudy, and we'll see some lighter winds as you get into the overnight period. In the Parkland region, currently 6 degrees. Also cloudy there in Dauphin. Expected cloudy skies. We do have a good chance of rain in the forecast later for that region. Winds will be mild from the east, feeling a bit breezy at times. Highs would get to 8 degrees. Good morning, Gimli. You are sitting at 8 degrees at this time. We have cloudy conditions in that part of the province. For the Interlake region today, mostly cloudy skies. We'll see some mild breeze from the southeast easing by the afternoon period. Temperatures warms up to 15 degrees later. Then we track conditions into the northern regions. Let's talk about the Par Flin Flon and nearby areas where we're seeing current temperatures hover around 7 and 8 degrees. We're already seeing a mixture of sun and clouds at this time. Temperatures warms up to 14 later. Thompson is sitting at 3 degrees at this time, mainly clear skies. The sun also about to make its appearance for that part of the province. It's going to stay mostly sunny today with mild winds from the east. Highs would get to 16, 17. Now further north in Churchill, 0 at this time, already sunny there. Expect plenty of sunshine for folks in Churchill today. Highs would get to 11 degrees. So the weather varies from mild and mostly cloudy, some rain in the Westman region and the Parkland region, and it's going to be dry and sunnier in the north and around Winnipeg. Winnipeg actually sits comfortable in the middle of all that's happening at this time with that mild temperature of 9 degrees and cloudy conditions from this for this time with the winds coming from the east.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey is in to look at our commute. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, heard earlier from Mandeep about a water main break on Century between Ellis and Sargent. It it's kind of looking a little flooded. You can drive through it, Mandeep said, but you really got to slow down or else that things will be splashing up all over the place. Didn't see any crews on scene then. That might have changed, so I'd love to get an update on that if you see anything. Also, one other thing to just let people know about looking ahead is that starting on May 23rd until the 25th, Louise Bridge is going to be closed entirely for construction work. So that's over the weekend. So heads up there as you plan. That's the 23rd to 25th. Louise Bridge is going to be closed for some maintenance. If you see anything else going on, if you have some updates for me, would love to get them. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line if you're walking, biking, driving. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, we just had a big interview about Canada Post, but let's look at actually some of the numbers behind all of this. So Canada Post with a strike notice from the union, which represents about 55,000 postal workers. Crystalie Ramlakan is here with our business news. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So through your business lens and with some of the numbers now that you've got to share with us, what does this actually mean?
Yeah, so operations are poised to shut down by the end of this week for the second time in 6 months. And workers are planning to walk out Friday morning at midnight. So a work stoppage would affect millions of residents and businesses who typically receive more than 2 billion letters and roughly 300 million parcels a year via the service. Now, no new items would be accepted until the strike ends. So those already in the system would be secured, but they wouldn't be delivered. And the only two exceptions would be social assistance checks and live animals. Now, Canada Post says a disruption would deepen the company's grave financial situation. But the union says it issued the strike notice in part to respond to the employer's recent indication that it may unilaterally change working conditions and suspend employee benefits. So, of course, this all comes amid broader questions about the future of Canada Post, which had an $845 million operating loss in 2023. And on Friday, a federally commissioned report on the 158-year-old institution highlighted, its struggling business model and recommended changes, including phasing out daily door-to-door delivery, letter mail delivery for individual residences, and though while maintaining it, though, for businesses.
If you want to call us and let us know how you're feeling about this pending strike, we'd love to hear from you, whether you're a business or an individual or in a rural area specifically. I'll just ask. 788-3205 is where you can reach us. All right, let's go to another story here, Crystalie. G7 finance leaders are meeting in Canada this week. What are they hoping to achieve?
Yeah, well, experts say the leaders from the Group of 7 democracies want to show unity when it comes to U.S. tariffs, economic security, Ukraine, and artificial intelligence cooperation. But mostly, they'll want to keep the powerful policy alliance from fracturing, even if it means less specific language and agreed upon actions. So U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will join the meeting starting today in Banff. And G7 members, Japan, Germany, France, and Italy, they all face potential doubling of U.S. reciprocal tariffs to 20% or more starting in early July. Now, we know that Britain has negotiated a limited trade deal that leaves it saddled with 10% tariffs still, though, on most goods. And Canada is still struggling with 25% duties on many of our exports. Now, experts say no one expects this to be a big moment where the U.S. declares a more favorable special deal for the G7, but ministers will likely try to remind Bessent that, they are the closest U.S. allies and that it's difficult for them to meet Washington's demands that they exert some economic pressure on China as well when they're facing pressure themselves. So experts say G7 officials appear determined to agree upon a joint statement here, which will set the stage for a G7 leader summit in June, which is going to be held in the nearby mountain resort area of Kananaskis, also in Alberta. So sources familiar with the finance negotiations say Canada has been actually pushing to achieve a consensus to show that G7 countries are standing together on a range of issues, including support for Ukraine in its struggle against Russia's invasion.
And finally, before we look at the numbers, more numbers, the markets this morning, bankrupt DNA testing company 23andMe is being sold.
Yeah, that's right. So Regeneron Pharmaceuticals plans to buy the genetic testing firm for $256 million US. Regeneron says it promises to prioritize the ethical use of customers' DNA data as it looks to bolster its capabilities in genomics-driven drug discovery by integrating 23andMe's trove of over 15 million profiles. So the transaction does put the spotlight back on data privacy issues. Once a trailblazer, 23andMe faced a data breach in 2023 that exposed millions of customers' genetic data. So that hack and the bankruptcy have drawn scrutiny from lawmakers who have warned that customers' genetic data could be sold to unscrupulous buyers. Now, Regeneron says it's going to comply, though, with 23andMe's privacy policies. And the drug maker says it's also committed to working with a court-appointed independent overseer who will assess the implications of the deal for consumer privacy. So it's expected to deliver a report to the court by June 10th, and then the court is scheduled to consider an approval of this transaction on June 17th.
Quick look at the markets, Crystalie.
In Europe, markets are higher. Germany, the UK, and France are all up. In Asia, markets are rising. Japan, Shanghai, and Hong Kong are all up. Oil is down 14 cents to $62.55 US per barrel. Gold is down 19.36 to $3,210.20 US per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.07 of a cent to 71.8 cents US.
All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
With our daily business news, that is Crystalie Ramlakan from CBC. Well, we've had a long weekend now, and we've had a lot of rain and cooler weather. Let's give you a fire update right now on what is still ongoing in Manitoba. So this is as of 5 o'clock last night, 13 fires still burning in our province, 2 considered out of control. The White Shell fire, still out of control, as you've been hearing in the news, 32,000 hectares. About 1,600 of that fire are on the Manitoba side of the boundary and are in the park, by the way. No property in the park has been damaged by the fire that we know of, but the park remains closed, along with a handful of others. In addition, still out of control, the Nopaming Bird River fire. That's a 100,000 hectare fire. It's devastated Nopaming Provincial Park. The evacuation order remains in effect, and that is where crews from BC and Alberta who are helping out in Manitoba are working right now. The Lac du Bonnet fire is no longer considered out of control, but 4,000 hectares, it's still being held. And some residents were permitted to return over the weekend, but other residential evacuations remain in place, so stay in contact with your local RM information. And finally, the Badger Carrick fire. This is from the RM of Piney. As we've been telling you, the evacuation order there has been lifted. That meant that some Manitobans spent last night driving back home. Late yesterday is when that order came, that the evac was lifted. And for Woodridge resident Mason Hildebrand, the news was welcome, as you can imagine. He spent nearly a week living in a hotel in Steinbach ahead of the evacuation order being lifted. CBC's Jeremy Bergeron went to Steinbach to talk with wildfire evacuees. The first story you will hear is Mason's.
It's been a little bit overwhelming, not always knowing what's happening with the fire and just not knowing if our house is safe, you know. But it's been a rough couple days not being at home. It's a lot different when you have to go to a hotel other than wanting to go to a hotel. We had to leave on Wednesday. It was my birthday too, so that kind of sucked that I had to leave, but the fires were getting too big. You could actually see them during the night. You could see just over the trees, everything was just glowing. And it was a beautiful view, I'm not gonna lie, but it was still scary, you know, thinking like, seeing the wind change and everything coming towards your town now, and you're thinking, well, do the firefighters got it, or are we able to stay here and be safe? But luckily we were able to get notified on time. It's a little bit discouraging not being able to be in town at our own homes, but at the same time, it's at least we're all safe. At least we all were able to evacuate safely and be okay. Lots of us are already sick of being here because we prefer to be out in the country at our own homes, right? So,
what do you miss the most from home?
From home, I don't know. The air seems a little bit more fresh out there, and I don't know. I'd like to go see the stars outside when it becomes night out, and there isn't as many stars out here, so it's not as great of a view. But hey, we're still alive and we're still here.
My name is Donald Heretic. Well, being in this place, it's okay, but we'd like to get back home, and wish we can get this fire out.
For how long have you been away from your house?
6 days already. So we're waiting for word for today, see if we got to go home. So we got to wait and see.
Do you think you will go today?
I really would hope so, but we got to wait and see. But this wind from the east, I don't know, because it's turning the fire around. So we have to wait and see.
What are you missing most from home?
My relaxation, and my garden, and cutting my grass, and my fresh air.
Yeah?
Yes.
When you're going to be back home, what will you do?
Oh, I got lots of things to do. I got to cut the grass right away, and then I got to do my garden and get it all ready.
Do you think your house is safe?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Right now it is. Not 2 days ago, a few days ago it wasn't, because that fire was not too far away.
CBC's Jeremy Bergeron speaking with wildfire evacuees yesterday in Steinbach. Still ahead, by the way, we are going to be hearing from the I-Team this morning. Caroline Bargut is going to be here looking at what you may have heard in the news, this 2021 provincial report. It highlighted concerns about a catastrophic fire in the White Shell. It issued a number of recommendations to mitigate the risk. But were any of them implemented? So Caroline will walk us through that in the next hour. Right now, it is 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. It's 9 degrees in Winnipeg, mostly cloudy. Light rain in Brandon. That's going to continue. You're expecting 5 to 10 millimeters of rain today. And then up in Thompson, not so much with the rain. You are expecting... Oh, my pages are stuck together here. You are expecting in Thompson a mainly sunny day and a high of 16 degrees. Well, next on the show, it has been a busy week in federal politics as Prime Minister Mark Carney returns from a trip overseas to Rome and prepares for the opening of a new session of Parliament next Monday, complete with a royal visit from King Charles. And then the news last night that workers at Canada Post plan to strike Friday, which we've been already telling you about this hour. For his take on this, Alex Ballingull is with us, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I
just asked my last guest whether or not Carney's going to intercede, get involved, I should say, in the Canada Post strike. What has the government response been so far to this?
I haven't seen much this morning, but if it's not out already, I'm sure we'll be hearing very soon. But there's definitely going to be pressure on the government to do something. It's only been a matter of months, really, I guess, since the last Canada Post strike that I'm sure everybody remembers. We had that report last week talking about how the corporation's basically in dire straits, approaching insolvency. There's obviously deep kind of structural issues potentially with the operation, and then obviously deep issues between management and the union. So, I think given that we're, the business community especially is kind of reeling from the trade and tariff turmoil right now. Having this kind of added to that, this uncertainty added to that, will only mean that there's pressure on the government, pressure on, I guess, on the company and the union to figure this out, but also on the Carney government to potentially, as you say, intercede or intervene or do something to resolve this, and then do something to kind of fix the broader issues at Canada Post, given that it's a Crown corporation. So I think that it'll be a big political focus, especially this week and heading towards that strike deadline to figure out what's gonna happen.
And I should say a possible strike, right? Because I think I said, what would he do with the strike? And that this hasn't happened yet. We're waiting to see what will happen Friday. Let's go to the G7 now. While in Rome this weekend, Carney did speak with several G7 leaders. The G7 finance ministers are now meeting this week in Banff. We just heard also from Christely Ramlakan this half hour on her view on what the key issues would be up for discussion. What's your take on that?
I think the biggest issue is the trade war for the G7, and how to navigate that, how to respond to the kind of the rupture in the order of trade that people have relied on or that countries have relied on. That's going to be a huge focus. The Liberation Day, quote unquote, tariffs that Trump announced in April. There was a 90-day pause on those, and that's basically, varying degrees of tariffs against much of the world from the States on their imports into the States. So that 90-day pause is expiring in July. So, how to stave that off, how to talk to the States and work through that, and then how to kind of build stronger relationships with each other potentially, which is a big thing that Carney has talked about, strengthening trading relationships with other countries. I think all of that will be a big focus of the G7.
I want to switch gears just for the last question here in our remaining time and ask you about the budget. On the topic of the budget, people might know that Carney has said this is not coming until the fall. What's the reaction been to that and why? What's the government said about why that's not coming until later in the year?
Yeah, so, obviously Parliament has been not sitting since December. So we haven't had the spring budget, which we normally see, given there was an election and basically a change of prime minister before the election. There's this small window between next week when there's the throne speech and the summer break, which is mid-June, when they could table a budget. But Carney's basically saying, given the turmoil around trade and how that impacts, economic growth projections and government revenue and things like that, it's better to wait. And also there's a NATO summit in the summer, and he pointed to that, saying, that NATO wants to increase the alliance's defense spending targets. Right now it's 2% of GDP, and Canada's never hit that. We're well below it still. But the alliance wants to increase that to maybe 3%. And the States is saying they want potentially even 5%. So whatever happens there could have kind of financial spending planning implications on Canada as well. So Carney is saying it's more prudent to wait till the fall. Last week when it seemed like there was maybe not going to be a budget this year at all, the Conservatives were quite critical of the government on that. So it'll be interesting to see how this new plan kind of plays. But that's kind of what they're saying now.
And that's where we're at. All right, Alex, thank you very much for starting off our short work week here, post-long weekend. Appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
That's Alex Bellingal. He's the Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. At 3 minutes to 7, here now is Heather Wells with our CBC Manitoba local news headlines.
Good morning. Well, evacuees from Whiteshell Provincial Park say they still don't know when they can return. Ken Pickering, president of the Whiteshell Cottagers Association, says locals are anxious but understanding. In its latest update, the province says Manitoba Wildfire Service continues to respond to 13 active wildfires across the province. A Winnipeg brewery owner is calling on Manitoba and Ontario to drop trade barriers for beer producers. Last Wednesday, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to increase interprovincial trade. Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug says it may help wineries that sell single bottles to customers, but won't help breweries like his that sell products by the pallet. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Weather-wise, mostly cloudy in Winnipeg, 9 degrees. Our high today, 15. It's going to be cloudy. Winds will be east at 20. So pretty straight-ahead day, though, below normal. Seasonal for this day in May is 21 degrees. So we're only going to hit 15, as I said. Rain in Brandon. It's already started raining now, and sunshine up in Thompson. Next on the show, in the next hour, the Information Radio. From running documents to memorizing where every MLA sits. Since the 1800s, young people have been working hard as pages behind the scenes in the Manitoba Assembly. Others have been interns at the Ledge. We're going to talk with a current page in the next hour to share more about the uniquely demanding job. And this is ahead of a reunion that is happening for pages and interns. So if you did that job back in the day, you might want to listen up to all the details. Also in the next hour, we'll have more on that I-Team report about that Provincial fire report that came out 4 years ago. Where are we at with that? Did any of the improvements happen? So Caroline Bargout's going to be in studio with us. And then at 7:40, we're going to hear from a Manitoba teacher who's taking a year off to race around the world in a sailboat. She doesn't have a lick of experience on the water, so why is she getting into this? We're going to hear more. Stay tuned.
Today on The Current.
What good is a cat that can't chase a mouse?
I don't do the chase thing.
Pet owners train their dogs, but don't tend to train their cats. Animal behavior experts say that's a mistake. Cats are smarter and more sociable than we give them credit for, and training can make them easier to get along with. On the Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada Post is once again on the verge of shutting down. CUP W represents 55,000 workers. The union says members are ready to walk off the job Friday morning. As Georgie Smythe reports, that would extend the job action that started before Christmas last year.
We didn't take that decision lightly to go out onto the picket line. But
Kate Holowadiak is the president at Canadian Union of Postal Workers Victoria. She says her members want to lock in a collective agreement with Canada Post and end the months of back and forth talks.
Canada Post walked away from the table again last week. I think that's about the third time through this process that they've walked away from the table. And they also indicated that they may change our working conditions.
The two parties had been working under a collective agreement that was extended after job action before Christmas last year. It expires on Friday. John Hamilton is a spokesperson for Canada Post. He says a report released last week shows the service needs an overhaul.
We need to be making a number of changes, starting with negotiating agreements that reflect the realities of 2025 and don't.
Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business and says acting on the report's recommendations could mean big disruptions too.
Restructuring means making Canada Post much, much smaller. This means layoffs of thousands and thousands of workers.
Both sides say they still hope to return to the bargaining table, but if no agreement is reached, operations including mail and parcel delivery could shut down by the end of the week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing back against a joint statement from Canada, the UK, and France. The leaders of those countries warned they would take joint action if Israel did not stop its military offensive in Gaza. And they criticized Netanyahu for blocking aid into the Palestinian territory. Today, Netanyahu is calling that statement a huge prize for Hamas. He said all European leaders should follow U.S. President Donald Trump's example in supporting Israel. The United Nations is warning 14,000 babies could die in Gaza if aid does not reach them soon. Tom Fletcher is the UN's humanitarian chief. He spoke to the BBC.
Let me describe what is on those trucks. This is baby food, baby nutrition. This is not food that Hamas are going to steal. We run the risk of looting. We run the risks of being hit as part of the Israeli military offensive. We run all sorts of risks trying to get that baby food through to those mothers who cannot feed their children right now because they're malnourished.
Fletcher says 5 trucks of aid went into Gaza yesterday, but he says this is totally inadequate for the population's needs, and he says 100 trucks have been cleared to cross the border today. The European Union is adopting another package of sanctions against Russia. It includes measures related to its fleet of oil tankers as well as human rights. The EU is pushing Russia to agree to a full and unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine. Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire about 60 days ago.
It takes 2 to want peace. It only takes 1 to want war. And Russia clearly wants war, whereas Ukraine wants peace. So in order to make Russia want peace, also we need to put more pressure on Russia.
U.S. President Donald Trump says Russia and Ukraine will start negotiations soon. He says that came from his 2-hour-long phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Britain also announced wide-ranging sanctions against Russia today, targeting its military, energy, and financial sectors. The Ontario government is buying 2 new helicopters to boost security along the U.S. border. One will go to Niagara Regional Police, the other to Windsor Police. $57 million has been put aside for the aircraft. But as Jennifer LaGrassa tells us, some officials are questioning the purpose and the cost.
The government launched Operation Deterrence at the start of this year to enhance border safety. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been bolstering border protections ever since U.S. President Donald Trump said it was an issue.
I understand wanting to secure the borders within Ontario as we continue the trade tariff talks.
Joanne Gignac chairs the Windsor Police Services Board. She was taken aback by the helicopter funding.
I was unaware of the announcement, but certainly Windsor Police Service Board will be interested in getting information from the province in terms of what this means. The devil is always in the details.
And those details will hopefully answer her questions around who will be trained to fly it and who is responsible for related costs.
But I think for the people of Windsor to have to assume the cost of operating a helicopter is naturally concerning.
I'm a little bit surprised and actually quite shocked by it.
Kent Rice is the president of the Windsor Police Association. With borders being the federal government's responsibility, he wonders whether this changes the mandate of Windsor Police. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police already have a number of helicopters dedicated to border patrol. The provincial government didn't respond to a request for comment, but in separate statements, the police chiefs for both Niagara and Windsor said they're grateful for the investment and that helicopters will allow them to better keep their communities safe. Jennifer Lagrassa, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
Police have reopened the case of two men who drowned off the shores of Lake Ontario 10 years ago. New evidence disproved theories from the initial investigation. As Nicole Williams tells us, the two men's families are hoping this will finally bring them justice.
Nothing's the same as it was before.
10 years ago, Jenny Wanamaker lost her brother, 26-year-old Matty Fairman. He had gone out spearfishing on the Bay of Quinte with his friend Tyler Miracle, both of Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, about halfway from Ottawa to Toronto.
They said they were going out for probably an hour.
But neither made it home. Their bodies found in the waters nearly 2 weeks later by some fishers. Their boat discovered at the bottom of the bay, connected to a net full of rotting fish that had belonged to someone else. Police believe the two had cut the net and tried to haul in the fish, overloading their boat, causing it to sink and the two men to drown. Ontario's chief coroner, Dr. Dirk Heyer, now says that's wrong.
We don't actually know what happened.
That's because of new evidence from an investigation by the Aboriginal People's Television Network. They put Miracle's boat through a series of tests, including loading it with more than twice the weight of fish police say was in the net at the time. It never sank. Follow-up tests by the coroner's office confirmed the results. Now Ontario Provincial Police ordered the case be reopened, but this time by Toronto Police, a relief to the families who have lived the last decade in anguish. Tammy Miracle was Tyler's mom.
You don't enjoy life anymore because you enjoyed life with him.
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Tyendinaga, Ontario.
Statistics Canada will release April inflation data later this hour. The annual rate of inflation is expected to cool compared to March. April marked the end of the consumer carbon tax. It was also the first month of tariffs between Canada and the United States. But both sides have offered some exemptions in the trade dispute. The Canadian High Commission in London is marking its centenary, and the celebrations include a visit today from King Charles and Queen Camilla. Crystal Gomansing is there.
A warm welcome for King Charles III and Queen Camilla.
We have built a great country, glorious and free, strong and sovereign.
The Canadian High Commission in central London opened in June 100 years ago. The establishment of Canada House and the role it's played on the international stage is being designated a National Historic Event by Parks Canada. King Charles was presented with an ornate key designed by Indigenous Canadian artist Morgan Asoff from the traditional territory of Kasim River in northern BC. The Royals were also shown a large floor-covering map of Canada with parks and important natural spaces. Spaces that make up the Commonwealth realm whose sovereignty has come under threat by U.S. President Donald Trump. While the King didn't say anything about that, he will be in Canada later this month to read the speech from the throne. A rare event, says Robert Hardman, who's covered the Royals for decades.
It's definitely a pretty emphatic statement of the importance of Canadian sovereignty to Canada and to its head of state.
Hardman says King Charles will likely relish his time in Canada, while at Canada House, the king was all smiles. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Really cloudy downtown right now. And some rain falling in Brandon this hour. Well, rain and cool weather is what we were really hoping for as we headed into the long weekend. We come out of it on the other side, and we do have a change in the fire situation. 13 fires still burning in the province, 2 still considered out of control, including in the White Shell. This hour on the show, a 2021 provincial report highlighted concerns of a catastrophic fire in the White Shell. It issued a number of recommendations to mitigate the risk. Were any of them implemented? The CBCI team's Caroline Bargood is going to be here to walk us through that. In addition, this hour on the show, a reunion's in the works for some members of the Manitoba Assembly, but not for the MLAs or the officers. This is for the young people who work behind the scene as pages and interns. We're going to hear all about it. Stay tuned for that. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other headlines to this hour at 7:11. What is developing, Heather?
Good morning. Yes. Well, a Winnipeg brewery owner is calling on Manitoba and Ontario to drop trade barriers for beer producers. Last week, Manitoba's Wab Canoe and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to increase interprovincial trade. Well, Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug says it helps wineries that sell single bottles to customers, but it won't help breweries like his that sell products by the pallet. And Winnipeggers missing backyard bonfires and fireworks can spark up again. The city's burn ban expired yesterday, although the Assistant Fire Chief, Lisa Gilmore, says conditions are still drier than normal and people need to be cautious. We'll hear more from her in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Time for our forecast now. Abby is here to have a look.
Good morning once again. We're starting off with mostly cloudy skies across the southern regions, rain tapering off in the Pembina Valley region at this time, and we have light rain falling in Brandon. It feels a bit cool right now. There's light rain and light breeze in most of the regions towards the west. Meanwhile, the north is seeing more like sunshine at this time in Thompson and Churchill. Right now, Winnipeg, 8 degrees, cloudy skies. It's going to stay cloudy for most of the day, and we warm up to 15 degrees later.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi with our forecasts. And now on CBC, there he is, Mr. Corey Funk, here with the commute.
Yeah, not too much going on, but you do want to keep an eye out if you are on northbound Sentry. Heard probably just over an hour ago that between Ellis and Sargent on Sentry there was a moderate water main break, and it was some pretty deep water. Folks were finding themselves driving through. You have to really slow down, says Mandeep, who called the commuter line. So just heads up there. Not sure if there's crews on scene dealing with that yet, but if you have any updates on that, let me know. Also, a reminder, starting Friday, so over the weekend, the 23rd to 25th, Louise Bridge is going to be closed for construction. So just heads up there. That's happening in a few days. It's closed both ways. If you see anything else, though, give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, at first this half hour, as I alluded to, since 2019, a reunion has been in the works for some members of the Manitoba Assembly. It will be happening. It's actually a pair of reunions, September 5th and 12th. But this is not for MLAs or officers. It is for the teens and young adults who work behind the scenes. Now, for decades, young Manitobans have worked in the legislature as pages and as interns. And it's not an easy job. And while they're excited to get everyone together to celebrate years of hard work with a call list that goes back decades and decades, getting everyone in the room is going to prove to be difficult. So last week I spoke about how difficult with the people organizing it. Rick Yarish is the clerk of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba. He's the one making the reunion calls. Good morning.
Good morning.
Does it feel like you're planning a social and you're hoping people show?
It is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Also, you're joined this morning by Claire Normando, who's a former intern. Good morning.
Good morning.
When did you intern? How many years ago was your experience?
2020 to 2021. So
okay.
A few years now.
Yeah. And also with us, Mayanne Hewen, who is a current page. Hi, Mayanne.
Hi.
So you're a current page. What made you want to do it?
Well, I first heard about it through my sister, and she told me a lot of stories about it and her experience. And I was becoming really interested in politics at that time, so I thought it'd be a really great opportunity to immerse myself and learn more about it.
Now, you're still in high school,
Yes.
and so when you say you already had an interest in politics, was that from when you were really young, or did that grow as you got into your upper teen years?
It was a lot smaller because I first applied in grade 10, so that was a couple years ago, and at that time I was just starting to get into it, but now it's definitely been nurtured a lot more, and I'm a lot more interested now.
Claire, what are some of your best memories of being a legislative intern?
Well, I just want to say the program was such a cool experience, and we got to do so much within the 10-month period. We got to meet so many really interesting people within the community and abroad, and I would say that the program really offers a great opportunity to do that for whatever sector you're interested in. My focus and my interest, I just finished my master's in curatorial studies, and so we got to meet with some leaders in the art world, which was really special to me, and definitely inspired me to keep going down that route.
And how did you get into it? Did you have a family member as well, or how did you understand that this is maybe, I'm going to pursue being an intern at the Ledge?
I actually started my journey in the building as a summer tour guide. I now manage the program, and I remember seeing the cool older interns, and I thought, I want to be one of them. And so I applied, and I was really interested in policy and law at the time. I've done a bit of a pivot since then, but being in the building, I got kind of the pulse of what was happening there, and I thought that was something I really wanted to pursue.
It's a special building to be in.
It definitely
Like you
is.
feel it when you walk into the Ledge. I've always felt that way. Now, Mayan, you actually, part of your job is memorizing the names, the faces, even the seats of every MLA.
Yep.
What would cause me intense stress? How do you go about it?
It definitely took a lot of time, as there are 57 MLAs, and it definitely helped to do a lot of repetition. I made flashcards of all the MLAs and their names, and I would practice just turning them over, and I would also lay out the flashcards in the seating chart order. That really helped to cement it in my mind of where they all are and who they all are.
Are they still in Canada?
Most of them, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of
interesting.
them, yeah.
I wondered because, of course, the nature of the work, we're talking about being interested in politics, but it's also it's citizen work, right?
Yeah.
So I just wondered if they stayed in Canada. What are you most excited about, Mayan, for, I know this is until September, but what are you looking forward to when everyone gathers?
I actually won't be able to attend the
Oh,
reunion
no.
personally,
Oh,
which is
no.
very sad. But I know that it's a really great opportunity to connect with the past generation of pages, and also to connect with the pages that you might have worked with during your year you haven't seen in a while, to catch up. And I've definitely been encouraging all the pages that I'm in contact with to attend.
Yeah. Claire, can you go?
I can go. I will be there.
What are you most looking forward to?
Reconnecting with everyone and also meeting new people. But also I think it's going to be really cool to see all the different things people have decided to do, because again, it's an opportunity, I guess, centralized within the building, but then that can open so many different doors, and you'd be surprised to know where some people have gone. So I'm looking forward to that.
What reaction do you get, Rick, when you tell people that you're planning this?
Enthusiasm, absolutely. People are very enthusiastic when we talk about this opportunity to come back and connect. A lot of people, especially in the intern program, a lot of people have stayed connected in the political world. Many people who are former interns have gone on to work in either as a political staffer or as we have had a few MLAs. A few of our current MLAs are former interns. So when I mention this to them, they're eager to come back and celebrate the program, and also to reconnect with people that they might not have seen in a long time. And likewise on the pages, we have a few people also who've been both pages and interns, so they'll be attending both. But it's an enthusiastic response all around.
Someone listening might never even know that this is possible. I know we're talking about the reunion, but they might think, oh, I never thought that I could even, work at the Ledge in this way at a young age. What would you say to encourage people to look into it?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's in fact one of two main reasons we wanted to hold these reunions was, one, to celebrate the programs, but also to use it as a promotion for both of the programs. Because you're right, a lot of people don't realize that these opportunities exist. So what I would say to folks who are interested is that anybody can apply for these positions. The Pages program is open to high school students, and the intern program is open to university graduates. So you either need to be graduating graduating from a Manitoba university or be a Manitoba citizen graduating from another university. And if you meet one of those criteria, then you can apply. It's a pretty competitive process. We get a lot of really impressive candidates for both programs, and every year we go through an intensive screening process. We hire 10 pages every year and 6 interns every year.
So we better leave people with where they can register and where they can find out more information. Rick, the website's the best place?
Yeah, so the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba website is where you'd want to go, and it's probably the easiest is to Google the Manitoba Legislature website and then just add intern reunion or page reunion. There's a separate page for each, and there's a button you can click, which is registration. You can put all your information in there, and then you'll be in, and we'll be delighted to see you.
All right. Thank you all for being here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. So that was a conversation I had on Friday with Rick Yarish, who's the clerk of the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba, as well as with Claire Normando, who's a former intern, and Mayanne Hewen, who's a current senior page. So the dates for the reunions are September 5th for the interns, September 12th for the pages. And as you heard, please go to the legislature website and check out more. You can Google Manitoba reunions for interns and pages. That'll also bring it up for September. And just a small note there, it sounded sort of strange perhaps and was lost in translation in our conversation. I had asked if they were still in Canada, not referring to the MLAs who are of course sitting, but referring to all of the interns and pages that they're trying to get a hold of for this September reunion.
Rise in pride, stand in strength. CBC is a proud sponsor of Pride, May 23rd to June 1st. Join CBC at the annual Pride Parade and be sure to show your pride at this year's festival by downloading the Pride Winnipeg app to get the most out of your Pride experience. Rise together in unity at Pride Winnipeg. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
7:22, it is 8 degrees, mostly cloudy in Winnipeg. We're the warm spot in the province, actually, and our high, as we've been sharing with you, is 15. I'm Marcy Marcusi with our team here at the show, and a bit of music before we get into morning sports. Tanika Charles has now shared the second single from her upcoming album. It's called Reasons to Stay, and this tune's Here When You're Ready.
We used to be thick as thieves. Now I'm haunted by your memory. You used to call me up for no reason. No matter the weather, no matter the season. Oh, to be given the choice.
Toronto's Tanika Charles, new music from her here when you're ready from her upcoming album. It's out May 16th. Which was Friday, so maybe you checked it out over the weekend. It is 7:25 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 9:90 a.m. on the app and YouTube. It is Tuesday, May 20th. If you had a long weekend as I did, hopefully you spent it well and safely in this province where we continue to have wildfire challenges. Although, as I've been repeating this morning, as of 5 o'clock yesterday, 13 fires still burning in the province, 2 still considered out of control. And we'll get the latest update on the challenge areas from Heather Wells, who is going to be here next with our news in 5 minutes. Right now, though, let's get into morning sports. Scott Reguer joins us live on CBC. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Marcy.
So I guess we got to talk about the teams that are still in. Just give me a moment. Okay, I'm off.
Understand.
I'm okay now. 2 big playoff series get underway tonight.
Yeah, including the biggest series in the Professional Women's Hockey League, Marcy. Ottawa will host Minnesota in Game 1 of the Walter Cup final. With an average of around 8,000 fans a game, the Charge led the league in attendance, and Coach Carla McLeod says that support has been a big part of our team's success.
We're in a really great moment here, and we've got a great community behind us. The fact that we get to open the series here and carry that energy into our next game is going to be an absolute thrill for us, and it's not lost on us how supported we've been. And we're excited that we're going to be in the Walter Cup final, and we're looking forward. Minnesota's an incredible team. It's going to be hard fought again, but we're excited for this opportunity.
Minnesota, the defending champions, of course, and will be the favorites, having been there and done that last year. For Canadian fans, though, Ottawa, with St. Anne's Jocelyn Larocque on defense, is this country's hope of winning a major hockey trophy at a time when hope is dwindling elsewhere. To wit, the Oilers are Canada's last horse in the NHL race, and that race continues for them tomorrow night against Dallas with Game 1 of the Western Final. And the opener of the Eastern Final, that goes tonight, Marcy, with the not-so-well-rested Florida Panthers taking on Carolina.
Let's go to another sport, another story.
Sure.
Leave that there. NBA players NBA playoffs now. Let's go there. What are you going to be watching as their Western Final gets underway tonight?
The latest exploits of the best Canadian player we've seen since Steve Nash. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Marcy, and his Oklahoma City Thunder will host Minnesota this evening. Shai will be facing the Timberwolves' Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who happens to be his cousin.
It'll be very fun. It's hard to even explain. Like, if you know how close we are, he's literally like my second brother. He's been through every stage of life with me, picking up a basketball to going to prep school to making the NBA. Like, we've gone through every situation together. For both of us to be where we are is special. To compete against each other is even more special. But I am trying to take his head off for sure.
You know your close win. 7:30 Central tip-off tonight. Oklahoma City, Marcy, they are the favorites. They are coming, after all, off the second-best regular season we've ever seen in NBA history.
And I just should go back to hockey for a second here. You mentioned Jocelyn Larocque, and I was looking up her hometown because sometimes I blank out, but it is, of course, St. Anne, Manitoba. So we can cheer for her. She plays with her Ottawa team. So what else do you have your eye on in sports? Because it's been busy. What do you want to share before you go?
Well, coming off their first win in league play, Valor FC will look to continue their success tonight in the Canadian Championship. It will not be easy. They're up against the top Canadian club from Major League Soccer, the Vancouver Whitecaps, who haven't lost in about 2 months now. Philip Dos Santos, who's Valor's coach, used to have that position with the Whitecaps, and he says, they're 11 guys, we're 11 guys, let's not be afraid, let's enjoy it, quote unquote. When you go to a gala, you might as well dance. Good attitude. Kickoff at 7:30. And NFL news. Owners are meeting over the next couple of days. This is about a number of issues, but this is the one I'm really intrigued by. They are floating the idea of having NFL players compete at the LA Olympics in the inaugural flag football competition. What? So a decision's got to be made. I think that'd be great. And just before I head off, It's not often I pull out my chess sound effects, Marcy, but this morning
I'm like,
they're
are you
warranted.
doing a knock-knock joke with me? What is that?
No,
Okay.
no knock.
Chess
Slide.
pieces.
Norwegian Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen, Marcy, has been forced into a draw by more than 143,000 people worldwide playing against him in a single record-setting game. Billed as Magnus Carlsen versus the world, the online match started more than a month ago on chess.com, and members of Team World, they voted on each move, and each side had 24 hours to make their play. They drew Magnus Carlsen. Something else. You know how to play chess?
Wow, no. I did back in the day. My head's a sieve, though, so I'm the kind of person that would need to be retaught. I have played it before. You?
Yeah. Stratego, a very watered-down form of chess, is what I do have the ability to play. Chess, not so much.
Ken,
no.
looking that up after. Thank you, Scott. Talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next. This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is 8 degrees. It's going to be a cloudy, cool one. A high today of 15, and we get back to seasonal temperatures towards the end of the week. A report written 4 years ago warned the province about wildfire risks in the Whiteshell. The 2021 report said the park was a tinderbox that could be in danger of heavy losses. The report made a number of recommendations to mitigate the risk, including controlled burns to remove pests and vegetation. Mike Flanagan is a wildfire expert and university professor in Kamloops, BC. He says the recommendations would prepare officials for emergency situations, but there's no way to know if they would save lives.
I can't tell you if they actually did all the recommendations, if these fires would have been avoided. I would hope so, but no one knows for sure.
It doesn't appear any of the recommendations have been implemented. The province would only say a number of factors have changed since the 2021 report, and many of the recommendations are ongoing. Officials also say the current fire situation will inform future steps. You can hear more on this story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. Meanwhile, evacuees from Whiteshell Provincial Park say they still don't know when they can return. A wildfire near the Ontario border forced people out last week. Ken Pickering, president of the Whiteshell Cottagers Association, says locals are anxious but understanding.
When you're away from your home for that long, you start to want to get back, and there's a bit of uncertainty in how long this is going to take. But I think at the same time, people are understanding that they want to return when it's safe, and they want to make sure that the firefighting crews have the ability to do what they need to do without worrying about people in the area.
In its latest update, the province says Manitoba Wildfire Service continues to respond to 13 active wildfires across the province. Winnipeggers missing backyard bonfires and fireworks can spark up again. The city's burn ban expired yesterday. Assistant Fire Chief Lisa Gilmore says the recent wet weather made it unnecessary to extend the fire ban.
Temperatures aren't as hot, the winds aren't as strong, and that precipitation came in a way that was really great to get the ground wet and to really start to green up stuff. So it was over an extended period of time, and a lot of it was kind of able to be absorbed into the ground.
Gilmore says conditions are still drier than normal, and a fire ban could come back later this summer. The city asks people to use caution and follow all fire safety bylaws. They also say you should always have a way to extinguish any fire close at hand. Well, the clock is ticking on a new strike by Canada Post workers. 55,000 unionized employees could walk off the job starting this Friday. Kate Holowadiak is with the Canadian Union of Postal Employees in Victoria.
There's definitely still time. 72 hours notice can be a long time, especially when so many conversations have already been had about these issues.
The latest threat follows a strike last November and December that lasted 32 days. The job action ended when the Canada Industrial Relations Board ordered the two sides back to work December 15th during the busy Christmas mailing season. The current collective agreement was extended until this Thursday. John Hamilton speaks for Canada Post.
We need to negotiate an agreement and not have another strike, because it would be debilitating to the Canadian economy at a time where it just doesn't need it. And it would only worsen our financial situation, which is, to the tune of $1 billion in losses a year.
The union and the Postal Service have been holding talks, but without much progress. to Trafalgar Square.
Your Majesties, Vos Majestés, welcome back to Canada House.
Ralph Goodale, Canada's High Commissioner to Britain, welcoming King Charles and Queen Camilla to Canada House this morning. The red carpet visit is part of celebrations marking the 100th anniversary of Canada House. It also comes a week ahead of Charles' trip to Ottawa, where he will deliver the speech from the throne next Tuesday, opening a new session of Parliament. You can hear the latest national and international news on World Report at 8. And a Winnipeg brewery owner is calling on Manitoba and Ontario to drop trade barriers for beer producers. Last week, Manitoba Premier Rob Canoe and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to increase interprovincial trade. Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug Brewing Company says it may help wineries that sell single bottles to customers, but won't help breweries like his that sell products by the pallet.
It's all about store shelves, right? And so Ontario breweries have much easier access into the Manitoba liquor stores than Manitoba breweries have into Ontario. So reciprocity would be great, removing those barriers and allowing true free trade in beer.
Selch hopes Canada's premiers can make a, quote, ambitious deal soon. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Live from our news center, Heather Wells with our newscast. She's back, of course, a little later in the morning, a little later in the program. Right now, let's go to the regional forecast. Abby Adiemi is going to set up our day here.
Good morning once again. We're looking at a cloudy and cool start across the southern part of the province this morning. More sunshine in the northern part, Churchill and Thompson already enjoying some sunshine at this time. Right now, Winnipeg, 8 degrees under cloudy skies. I don't see rain in the forecast yet. We're just seeing some winds from the east and it's really mild. We warm up to 15 degrees later today. In the Pembina Valley region from Morden, Winkler, Elton and Morris, we're seeing cloudy starts. We had rain there earlier. Temperatures around 4 degrees at this time. The rain's still tapering off in some areas. Once that's done, you're going to see more like cloudy conditions and warming up to 11. In the Westman region, Brandon is at 5 this morning. We're still seeing that light rain falling in that part of the province. The rain will continue through the day, breezy from the east at some point, and then you warm up to 6 degrees. Dauphin is at 6 degrees at this time. Cloudy conditions you're seeing. The Parkland region will see more clouds rolling. Then we have a good chance of rain by the midday period. Winds will come from the east. It feels windy at some point, and then you warm up to 8 degrees. Gimli, 8 degrees also at this time. The Interlake region will mostly see cloudy skies. Mild southeast winds throughout the day. Highs around 15 degrees. The Flin Flon surrounding areas, we're seeing temperatures hover around 7 and 8 degrees at this time. Already having a mix of sun and clouds. Mostly seeing that wind coming from the west. Highs would be around 14 degrees. We do have a slim chance of rain in the forecast sometime before the evening period. Then Thompson, you're seeing lots of sunshine at this time. 3 degrees. It's going to stay mainly sunny for today, warming up to 16. And then further north in Churchill, 2 degrees and also sunny. Clear conditions you have. Southeast winds feeling light. Highs would be around 11. So across board, it's more like sunny and milder up north, and then you come down south. It's cloudy conditions with showers spotted in the west into the Parkland region. But Winnipeg is sitting at the middle, 8 degrees.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
I should mention, by the way, we're going to have more on that I-team investigation that looked at the provincial report that suggested some improvements in Whiteshell Provincial Park to prevent or deal with, be ready for wildfire potential. So we're going to have that closer look coming up with the I-team this half hour on the show. Right now, though, Corey has his eye on what's happening on the commute.
Yeah, that water main break on Century between Ellis and Sargent, still a problem. Got a call from Keith who said, yeah, sure enough, there's still a bunch of water there. You can go through, but it is really slowing things down. So heads up if you're on Century between Ellis and Sargent. Also, just keep in mind, looking ahead, that Louise Bridge is going to be closed from the 23rd to 25th this week, going both ways for construction and maintenance. If you have anything else to add, if you see anything going on, if you're walking, bike, and driving, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Well, next in the show, Corey actually has a story to bring to us, an interview with someone who took on something that, well, frankly, got a little bit gutsy to do this.
Yes. So it's actually a boat race around the world, which kind of sounds like something from like a fantastical old-timey novel or something like that. But Ruby Thornton is her name. She actually teaches in northern Manitoba in the Nisquamish Nilsic, Nelson House area, and she's doing it. So, and the thing is, though, she's actually never sailed before in her life, and she's got this big challenge ahead of her now. So the race itself is called the Clipper Race. It partners new sailors with pros to team up and race the 74,000 kilometers around the world. And she's actually in the UK now training for that race, which leaves at the end of August. And she told me why she wanted to sign up.
It all happened in 2022 when I was graduating Teachers College. It felt like a chapter of my life was ending, and everyone is kind of pushing you to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're finishing university. I love traveling, and I had always known I wanted to see the majority of the world. Doing it in one go, I think, started years ago. I watched the original Around the World in 80 Days. So it was kind of always in the back of my mind. And then university was ending, and I thought, well, I'm becoming a real adult, and if I need a break or I don't love my first career choice, then maybe this will be the way to do it.
So this challenge that you signed up for, the Clipper Race, it takes a little bit more than 80 days to get around the world.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the race and what it all took to actually become a part of it.
Well, it was just a fluke. It popped up on, I think it was my Facebook feed. You know how we all think our devices are listening to us now. Well, that might be the case. I think I just talked about it around the dinner table with my family, and then their page came up, so I started doing a little bit of research. So since I've been in contact with them, I've been over to the Portsmouth, Gosport area twice now. I've just completed my 3rd week of training. I just got off the boat. I'm very red and sunburnt. So we've been out on their Clipper 68 boats, and this week I was on their 70-foot boat, which is what we'll be using for the race. And so they put us through our paces, learning everything there is to be safe and to get these boats going at a quick pace.
So yeah, what's unique about this race is that it's actually kind of designed for amateurs. You have no prior sailing experience, right? So you're starting fresh, and starting August 31st, you're setting off. I think there's 11 boats, and you're actually racing around the world to see who can get around the world first. What's the training been like for you? Like, is it what you expected? And what's the biggest challenge has been to, like, learning, how to sail around the world in such a short amount of time?
It's been a lot of information very quickly. I think because they advertise that anyone can participate in this race with zero experience necessary. That's why it appeals to someone like me. But coming in, it's a lot of information very quickly. Your level 1 training, it's a lot. You're learning about the different sails, how we hoist them, how to safely work with the sheets to get them up, and how to trim them. Level 2 is less information, but that's because they take you out and you do more night sailing. So you get used to watch or shift work. So not everyone is up on the boat at all times. Some people are sleeping. So level 2 is just taking all that information you learned in the span of a week and trying to give it a more practical approach. That was a lot for me, staying up throughout the night, which I knew I got seasick coming into this. I didn't realize how badly it would affect me. So I was kind of out of commission for almost 24 hours, and then I tried to get back in and help my team out.
Oh, really? What was that like?
Yeah.
Like, were you a little bit nervous? Like, did you have any thoughts go through your mind? Like, like, is this even like for me? Like, if you're out for 24 hours, like, what was that like for you?
Very uncomfortable. I don't know if you've ever had a bad case of food poisoning before, but it's similar to that. I couldn't really sleep because the boat is moving so much, and I had to be near a garbage can. Sorry if that's too much information, but
Have you learned to? Did you train yourself to overcome it? Like, what do you do to get better at getting seasick?
Well, I've got a whole different whack of remedies that I have to give a try now. I brought a bunch of them for this 3rd week of training. I didn't get a chance to use them because we were doing mostly day sailing, and that doesn't bug me apparently. So I had them all on the boat, but I had no trouble this week. I think it's just a combination of nighttime and then going below deck, where I think that throws your equilibrium off a little bit. So I've got all the remedies. It's now just giving me a chance to actually use them and seeing what works for me.
Right. And when we talk about yachts, just to be clear, I guess, we're not talking about luxury yachts here, right?
No, it's a sailing. I believe the term is sailing yacht, just because it's so large.
Right. But you're operating all yourself. It's not a billionaire's
No.
on board bar and things like that.
No machines for us. Our muscles get to do all the work.
Okay. So how are you feeling now? Because I guess you still got a few months till you take off. How long will the race be in total? And have you sized up your competition? Like, is there a bit of a competitive thing? You're like, oh, like these, I want to get there first. Is there like a prize at the end? How does that all work?
I don't think there's like a physical prize at the end. It's bragging rights, because you're going around as quick as you can. The people I've done my training with so far have been absolutely phenomenal. I'd love to have any of them on my crew with me, but we're probably not all going to end up on the same boat. So yes, there's going to be a little bit of competition of whose boat is going to make it around first. We've all got different group chats going on where we're all kind of testing the waters to see how competitive we're all going to be. Tomorrow actually is our crew allocation day. So there's a big event Clipper throws on where we get to meet the skippers and the first mates, and we find out what boat we're on and what skipper we're actually going to be with and the rest of our crew. So that's why I wanted to do my third week of training now, is so I could be in England for this event. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And then we get to decide as a team with our skipper how competitive we'd like to be. Are we aiming to win every leg? That sort of thing.
And I know you're a teacher at NNOC, which is the Nisitawayasik Nelson House area. What do your students think of what you're doing?
Some of them are very excited for me. They like to see some of the photos I've taken. I like to show them the map that we're going to be traveling roughly, because a lot of them they want to know what I'm up to next year. They ask the question a lot of, oh, are you coming back, Miss Thornton? And I have to remind them that they know I'm not. And then we go through the map again, and they're all pretty excited. So it's nice to have them excited for me.
So that's Ruby Thornton speaking with CBC's Corey Funk in conversation actually on Friday. She embarks on her race around the world from Portsmouth, UK, by the way, on August 31st.
Horse riding Ben Cartwright selling cars.
A bonanza of beauty and value.
Sheriff Andy likes his coffee in an instant.
That's why you get that real perk flavor in your cup.
And Walter White insures your prescription.
Say my name.
From Bonanza to Batman, when fictional characters endorse brands. On Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen. Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
12 minutes now to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching and listening wherever you're tuning in today. It is at 8 degrees in Winnipeg. It's really cloudy out there. Our high is 15, so we're still below normal, but not like the weekend with that zero shivering in our bones. So 15 degrees. We are going to have a cloudy day ahead, and there's rain to the west in Brandon, some pretty heavy rain expected. Well, after 8 o'clock on the program, a show of respect from one hockey community to another. We're going to hear more about how fans of the Dallas Stars kickstarted a campaign that raised over $50,000 in honor of Mark Scheifele's father. So you probably heard the story by now, but we're going to walk you through even more. That's coming up after 8. Right now, though, next on the show, it was not the long weekend that a lot of campers and cottagers were hoping for. And of course, I'm not just talking about the cold weather. As of 5 o'clock yesterday, here's your fire update. 13 fires still burning in the province, 2 of those considered out of control. Thousands of people remain evacuated from their properties and homes this morning. Those 2 two out-of-control wildfires currently threaten Whiteshell Provincial Park, forcing an evacuation of the entire park last week. The 32,000-hectare fire to the east of the park is mostly still in Ontario, but it has crossed the Manitoba boundary into the Whiteshell. Now, no property in the park has been damaged that we understand this morning by that fire. North of the park, there's a 100,000-hectare fire that's devastating Nopaming Provincial Park, and then that's forced roughly 1,000 people out of their homes there in the Bird River area. That is still very much a huge problem. In 2021, though, let's take you back to the Whiteshell, because Manitoba government officials raised concerns in that year, 4 years ago, about what could happen in Whiteshell Provincial Park if a massive wildfire was to occur. They found the end result could be devastating. The CBC Manitoba I-Team got a copy of a report of those findings and is here to talk about what, if anything, has been done with them. Caroline Bargood is in studio to walk us through. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what does this report say?
So the report is 70 pages long, and in it, wildfire experts detail what would happen if an out-of-control blaze were to hit the Whiteshell, Provincial Park, and a 20-kilometer buffer around it. Now, back in 2021, they simulated a fire that would typically happen in this area in the spring and summer months because they wanted to study exactly how it would impact this area. They identified 3 specific areas with the highest risk: Falcon Lake, Rennie, and Pointe du Bois.
So why are those areas a higher risk?
So there's a number of things. First of all, there's thousands of homes and cottages in the area that are surrounded by one-lane roadways, as well as dense tree lines and numerous lakes, which makes it very difficult for people to get out of these areas in case of an emergency. That's what makes it very susceptible to devastation. Now, the report says, and I quote, "Any road closures from either traffic accidents or wildfire may result in large-scale entrapment situations leading to catastrophic events, including significant loss of life if evacuees become stranded along transportation corridors." Now, Mike Flanagan is a wildfire expert, and he's also a university professor. He lives in Kamloops. He says, like much of Canada, the Whiteshell has a very flammable landscape.
The recipe for a wildfire is simple. You need 3 ingredients. The first is vegetation. Fire people call it fuel. What type, how much, how dry, all important aspects of the fuel. Second, you need ignition. People and lightning. And it's about 50-50 in Canada. 50% lightning, 50% human caused. And the third is hot, dry, windy weather. And it's been record-breaking heat in southern Manitoba, with very strong winds, low relative humidities, extreme fire weather. And that's our problem, is the extremes.
And as you know, we're just at the beginning of fire season. Summer is still on the way, so we could see more wildfires in the weeks and months to come.
So what can be done about the risks as he outlined them?
So this report that we got, the 2021 report, highlights about 10 things that the province could do to mitigate some of these risks, including improving the roads in and out of the Whiteshell, educating residents about wildfire risks, creating safety zones for people to escape to if they can't get out of the Whiteshell, and sharing the results of this report with local first responders and working with them to identify gaps in the evacuation route planning, as well as conducting controlled burns to remove pests and vegetation. The report also calls for people in the area to do their part and clean up their yards. Now, that's something that Barb Bobichuk has been doing for years. Back in 2016, there was a wildfire in Caddy Lake that destroyed a number of properties. Thankfully, her home survived, she says, in part because of the province's response.
But going back to the 2016 fires, I think it was really well coordinated at that point. They had value protection, like Parks Branch and the government were involved in bringing out sprinklers that were put on everyone's cottages if they were in direct line of the fires to try and save them. This time around, there's nothing. We have nothing. So I don't know if it's the change in command for our South Whiteshell parks. The people in charge, do they know what they're doing? Not sure, because they've never been through this.
She says this time around there's been zero communication with homeowners. The province's website has not been updated regularly. Information has been very difficult to get. And she worries that's putting people and properties at risk.
Do we know if any of the recommendations that you cited out of this report 4 years ago have been implemented?
We don't know, but we don't think so. The province would only say that a number of factors have changed since the 2021 report. They say that they can explain what has changed after this fire situation. Now, many of the recommendations contained in the report, the province says, quote, are ongoing. And they say that this current fire situation will also inform any future steps. Now, we spoke to a number of people with knowledge of this report as well as emergency responders, and they've all said to us, as far as they know, none of these recommendations have been implemented. Now, that does not surprise Sean Harbottle. He lives in West Hawk Lake. He owns a home there as well as the general store.
When you live in the park, you quickly discover that not much gets going, and a lot of things that the locals know out here are told to the parks, nothing is done a lot of times. So does it make me angry? Sure it does, but we live here and we just have to keep fighting through it.
Now, he says in his experience, he believes that it is the Parks Department that is the roadblock and not whichever government's in power.
You mentioned some of these things, but just to reiterate and add to them, is there anything locals can do then to mitigate the risk?
So a lot of the homeowners in the area, like Barb Babachuk, have put sprinklers on top of their homes and garages and whatnot. They've also bought generators in order to run those sprinklers because they don't know how long they'd be out if they were evacuated, and who knows how long these things would last without monitoring them. Now, their hope is that this would be enough to protect their homes. Barb and Sean both told us that they clean up the dead trees around their yard and their properties in hopes of removing some of those risks, but they also rely on the province to do its part, and neither of them feel confident that that is happening right now.
All right, Caroline, thanks for bringing this in.
Thanks.
That's Caroline Bargut, reporter with CBC Manitoba's I-Team. More on the story tonight on CBC News at 6. You can read about it on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Always like to remind you if you have something to add or share or something new, unrelated to what we're talking about even, but it's a tip for the I-Team. You can reach them by email, the letter I-Team at cbc.ca, or you can call them at 204-788-3744. And I think we're going to have a lot to understand out of these wildfires once we are out of the immediate risk here, and also to prepare for the summer, given that on Friday, the last two interviews I did before I left for the long weekend were actually with the arms of Piney and Lac du Bonny, and both reeves saying there's going to be some post-analysis to be done about what will work best and if there are improvements to be made to some of the evacuation orders and how people get information. For example, we'd heard from someone in the Lac du Bonny area saying, if everything's on Facebook and online and you don't have that, or if the power goes out, and so lots of challenges. Some of you have been writing to me confidentially through the weekend, so we will certainly stay on top of the story and try to find out more about how things might be improved in the province. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for our news headlines at 3 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Good morning. A big drop this morning in Canada's inflation rate. Statistics Canada just out with its latest report saying inflation fell to 1.7% last month from 2.3% in March. The falling price of gasoline, the biggest factor. At the same time, food prices continue to rise. Here in Manitoba, inflation registered at 2.1%. It had been 3%. And Winnipeg's fire ban has expired, but firefighters still urge caution. The ban went into effect May 5th and expired yesterday. The assistant chief with the Winnipeg firefighters, Lisa Gilmore, says recent wet weather made it unnecessary to extend the ban, but conditions are still drier than normal. So do be careful with those backyard fire pits or barbecues or fireworks. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In Winnipeg today, cloudy and a high of 15 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy into the evening, a low of 7. And then tomorrow, sun and cloud and a high of 19. So we'll warm up as the week goes on, but just 15 in cloud cover for today. Right now, it remains at 8 degrees with lots of cloud in the downtown area. Light rain continues to fall in Brandon. You're expecting 5 to 10 millimeters of it. In the next hour of the program after 8 o'clock, over the weekend, more than $55,000 was raised in honor of Mike Shifley's father. The Winnipeg Jet Center's father died suddenly on Friday. But there was a lovely connection here because this was not generated, this initiative, by Jets fans. It was by people in Dallas. So you might have seen some of these heartfelt moments and some of the reaction and people had to Mark Scheifele still taking to the ice and in fact scoring a goal in that game over the weekend playing on the day where he just had the news that his father died. So there's been quite a lovely show of respect in the hockey community. We're going to share more about that coming up after 8 o'clock. Right now, though, it's 1 minute to 8. We'll hear more about the royal visit on World Report. Stay with us.
Today on Q with Tom Power.
Julie Taymor completely changed the game in theater, bringing animals to life in Disney's massive The Lion King musical. Julie will share the stories behind that production, including how a ceremony she witnessed in Bali, Indonesia, changed everything for her. That's coming up on Q, followed by Commotion with Elamine Abdel Mahmoud on CBC Radio 1, the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Pet owners train their dogs, but don't tend to train their cats. Animal behavior experts say that's a mistake. Cats are smarter and more sociable than we give them credit for, they say, and training can make them easier to get along with. On the Current with Matt Galloway in half an hour.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Canada Post, once again on the verge of shutting down. CUPW represents 55,000 workers. The union says members are ready to walk off the job on Friday morning. As Georgie Smythe reports, that would extend the job action that started before Christmas last year.
We didn't take that decision lightly to go out onto the picket line. But
Kate Holowariak is the president at Canadian Union of Postal Workers Victoria. She says her members want to lock in a collective agreement with Canada Post and end the months of back and forth talks.
Canada Post walked away from the table again last week. I think that's about the third time through this process that they've walked away from the table. And they also indicated that they may change our working conditions.
The two parties had been working under a collective agreement that was extended after job action before Christmas last year. It expires on Friday. John Hamilton is a spokesperson for Canada Post. He says a report released last week shows the service needs an overhaul.
We need to be making a number of changes, starting with negotiating agreements that reflect the realities of 2025.
Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Sprott School of Business and says acting on the report's recommendations could mean big disruptions too.
Restructuring means making Canada Post much, much smaller. This means layoffs of thousands and thousands of workers.
Both sides say they still hope to return to the bargaining table, but if no agreement is reached, operations including mail and parcel delivery could shut down by the end of the week. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Canada's inflation rate cooled in April. New data just released from Statistics Canada shows a sharp decline to 1.7% last month from 2.3% in March. The removal of the consumer carbon tax is a main driver. Prices at gas pumps were down by about 18% year over year. Energy prices also fell by nearly 13%. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing back against Canada and other countries who have been calling for Israel to stop its military offensive in Gaza and allow more aid into the Palestinian territory. Netanyahu is calling their public statement a huge prize for Hamas. He says all European leaders should follow U.S. President Donald Trump's example in supporting Israel. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, remind us exactly what Canada and these other countries said yesterday.
Marcia, Canada's latest positions on this came in the form of two joint statements with other allies. First, the statement from the leaders of Canada, the United Kingdom, and France that strongly opposed the expansion of Israel's military operations in Gaza and called the level of human suffering there intolerable, condemning as wholly inadequate Israel's move over the weekend to allow in only a basic quantity of food aid. Separately, foreign ministers from 22 countries as well as EU aid groups were also condemning Israel's new model for delivering aid into Gaza, noting that the UN doesn't believe it's going to be effective and move the food at the speed and scale required. It also said that humanitarian aid should never be politicized, while Palestinian territory must not be reduced or subjected to demographic change. Now, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, that's a Canadian group supportive of Israel, said the fact that Hamas had applauded the joint statement spoke volumes about its misguided premise. It said that the position that Canada was taking with its allies gives Hamas incentive to continue rejecting a negotiated agreement.
It is early days for the Carney government, and people are watching to see if there will be a shift in policy on the Middle East. What is being said so far?
Well, in her first media scrum after becoming foreign minister last Wednesday, Anita Anand said that Canada wouldn't allow the continued use of food as a political tool, but she upset Jewish groups by also not acknowledging that it was the Hamas attack on Israel in 2023 that started the war. When Mark Carney met Israel's president on the sidelines of the Pope's inaugural Mass at the Vatican on Sunday, the readout from that meeting was clear that Carney had reiterated the need for Hamas to release all hostages and lay down all its weapons.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Multiple explosions rocked southern Gaza this morning. Israel's military says it has struck more than 650 Hamas targets over the past week, part of its new operation aimed at eliminating Hamas's military capabilities. Local medical workers say more than 500 people have been killed in the past 8 days. Ceasefire talks are still going in Doha. This morning, Qatar's prime minister said the talks have led nowhere because the parties have fundamental differences. Police have reopened the case of 2 men drowned off the shores of Lake Ontario 10 years ago. New evidence disproved theories from the initial investigation. As Nicole Williams tells us, the 2 men's families are hoping this will finally bring them justice.
Nothing's the same as it was before.
10 years ago, Jenny Wanamaker lost her brother, 26-year-old Matty Fairman. He had gone out spearfishing on the Bay of Quinte with his friend Tyler Miracle, both of Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, about halfway from Ottawa to Toronto.
They said they were going out for probably an hour.
But neither made it home. Their bodies found in the waters nearly 2 weeks later by some fishers. Their boat discovered at the bottom of the bay, connected to a net full of rotting fish that had belonged to someone else. Police believe the 2 had cut the net and tried to haul in the fish, overloading their boat, causing it to sink and the 2 men to drown. Ontario's chief coroner, Dr. Dirk Heyer, now says that's wrong.
We don't actually know what happened.
That's because of new evidence from an investigation by the Aboriginal People's Television Network. They put Miracle's boat through a series of tests, including loading it with more than twice the weight of fish police say was in the net at the time. It never sank. Follow-up tests by the coroner's office confirmed the results. Now Ontario Provincial Police ordered the case be reopened, but this time by Toronto Police, a relief to the families who have lived the last decade in anguish. Tammy Miracle was Tyler's mom.
You don't enjoy life anymore because you enjoyed life with him.
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Tyendinaga, Ontario.
The Trump administration is pushing ahead to substantially increase deportations. For the first time yesterday, it sent nearly 70 immigrants back to Honduras and Colombia on a government-funded flight. Washington calls these voluntary deportations.
Yo tenía plan de regresarme. Entonces ya todo ese gasto yo ya me lo evito, si me entiende ya.
This man says he had already planned to return to Honduras, so this was a good way to save money. People who took part in the deportation program were given $1,000 debit cards, and they were told they would one day be allowed to apply for legal entry into the U.S. Canadians could be getting hip and knee replacement surgeries faster. That's what new research published by the Canadian Medical Association Journal suggests. And as Christine Burak tells us, experts say it could happen without an increase in funding or new operating rooms.
We have all the resources there. We have the people. We have the funding.
Dr. David Urbach, head of surgery at Women's College Hospital in Toronto, co-authored the study. Using data from over 17,000 procedures in Ontario, researchers simulated wait times by region. They found prolonged wait times for hip and knee replacements could be eliminated by replacing referrals with a single wait list that sends patients to the next available specialist for consultation and the surgery.
We could actually get everybody who needs a joint replacement, we can get them to surgery quickly. All we have to do is reorganize how patients flow through the system.
Data shows centralized wait lists in one region led to 90% of patients having their consultation and surgery in about 6 months rather than a year. But it means surgeons would largely give up control of their own wait lists.
Getting your patients through the system is certainly a lot more important than having the pride of a longer wait list.
Dr. Olufemi Ayeni is head of the Canadian Orthopedic Association. He says surgeons are open to change.
But I think without surgeon input or patient input into these systems, then you may have a muted response as to what is truly adopted in the future.
If it's shown to be effective, I support any measure that actually reduces wait times.
56-year-old Tina Moffat spent over a year in agonizing pain awaiting hip surgery. Change takes time, but she says too many patients can't get their surgeries fast enough. Christine Burak, CBC News, Binbrook, Ontario.
At cbcnews.ca, click More for our health tab. This is the big story on our health page. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. If you had a long weekend as I did, hopefully you stayed safe and you spent it well. Thanks for joining us. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube this morning. Abby Adiemi is the man with your forecast on our show. He's going to be in a moment to tell us about things. We're going to still be cooler than usual today, but a little bit better than the weekend. And wet in parts of the province. We will also have a bit more of a fire update for you, and Heather Wells in with the very latest momentarily. This half hour, we're going to talk about that game, the Jets game on the weekend. And of course, Mark Scheifele taking to the ice just hours after learning that his father had passed away. Sudden news of his father's death, and Scheifele receives a groundswell of support from the hockey community in a beautiful send-off in the handshaking line after the game. Also, though, fans of the Texas team, Dallas, our rivals there, kickstarted a donation campaign in honor of Scheifele's father. And we're going to hear this half hour from the Dallas player behind that, who was in conversation with Riley Lachuk from here at CBC Manitoba. So stay tuned for that. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for those headlines. Good morning. We're having some challenge with Heather. She's just not in the booth yet. So you know what? We're going to swing right into weather with Abby Adiyemi, as I mentioned, and then Heather will do the headlines afterwards. Just busy with something, obviously. So Abby, I mentioned we're going to be cloudy in Winnipeg today and a little bit cool, right?
Yeah, it's going to be cloudy. Cool start across the southern region this morning, while the north is waking up to more sunshine and it feels mild there. Winnipeg, 9 degrees at this point. It stays dry today. We warm up to 15 degrees, a bit of breeze, and then tonight clears up a little low of 7 degrees. We're looking at sunshine tomorrow. And across the southern region, Brandon, Dauphin, Gimli, temperatures at this time hovering between 4 and 8 degrees. Some light rain falling this morning in the Westman region. We're talking about 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, but that should taper off later in the evening. And elsewhere in the south, we're seeing highs between 11 and 15. And further north, Flin-Flon, Thompson, the Park, Churchill, we're looking at a brighter day, a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures this morning, as at now, we're seeing 2 degrees in some areas and 7 in some areas. And the highs will be between 14 and 16, except for Churchill, that stays cooler at around 11 degrees later. But Winnipeg, we are at 9 degrees and we warm up to 15.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
We will go to Heather for headlines in a moment, but while we're on our weather traffic, Pat Corey's popped in with our commute news.
Yeah, keep an eye out if you're on Century between Ellis and Sargent. There was a water main break earlier this morning. Might still be pretty wet through there, so you may have to slow down. I got a couple calls that it really is kind of getting slow through there. People don't want to hydroplane or anything like that. Other than that, keep in mind that on Friday, starting Friday through the weekend, the 23rd, 25th, Louise Bridge, both ways, is going to be closed for maintenance. So heads up there if you're if that's part of your week. weekend commute. If you see anything else going on, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
And now live to our CBC News Center with Heather Wells and your headlines.
Good morning. Well, a report written 4 years ago warned the province about wildfire risks in the Whiteshell. It said the park was a tinderbox that could be in danger of heavy losses. We're going to hear more about that report coming up. And a Winnipeg brewery owner is calling on Manitoba and Ontario to drop trade barriers for beer producers. We'll hear from the owner of Little Brown Jug in our next local news at 8:30.
"8:14 is the time right now, and you might have heard over the weekend after Mark Scheifele played just hours after learning of the sudden passing of his father and played that final Jets game. After the game, he was sent to Kitchener, Ontario on apparently the Dallas Stars owner's private jet after Game 6 so that he could get there swiftly to be with his family following, obviously, his father's death. So I think a lot of Jets fans were feeling for Mark Scheifele, of course, over the weekend. But it wasn't just Jets fans. As I alluded to earlier, more than $55,000 was raised in honor of Mark Scheifele's father. So the Jets center's father died suddenly Friday, actually. Scheifele learning about it Saturday before the game. And when lifelong Dallas Stars fan Ryan Grimes heard the news, he wanted to pay his respect to the Scheifele family. So he started this. First, he decided to donate to Kids Sport Canada. This is an organization that Scheifele is the ambassador for. But Ryan would never have guessed that his actions would have kickstarted a donation campaign that well transcends hockey rivalry. CBC's Riley Lachuk spoke with Dallas Stars fan Ryan Grimes to hear more.
Ahead of Game 6, we learned that Mark Scheifele's dad passes away. At that point, what's going through your mind?
Well, I was actually at a family gathering. It was my niece's first birthday, and like the great uncle I am, I was checking, Game 6 analytics for the Stars game before it. And I actually just saw a notification that was only like a partial phone notification, just saying that Scheifele was questionable for Game 6 with no other details. And, as a Stars fan, obviously, we're hoping for the win in Game 6. But when I opened up the article, my kind of attitude towards it just changed immediately. My heart just kind of sunk, right? I know I'm very, very close with my family. I'm very close with my dad. And, if he were to pass, I would be a complete mess, and I can't even imagine it. So my heart just went out to him immediately, and then as I started to see the articles saying he was going to play, or it was looking like he was going to play, it was just kind of just nothing but the utmost respect for him for going through that and battling through that to go out there and play, right?
So you, I guess you're the first one who kind of, challenges people on Reddit to do something. What drove you, I guess, toward wanting to donate to Kids Sport and encouraging others to do the same with other charities?
Oh, you know what? Being a Stars fan in Ottawa, I think I've met one other Dallas fan within the province. So whenever I watch games or whenever I'm watching the Stars, I always go to the Stars subreddit just because that's kind of my interaction with fans, right? That's who I'm able to talk Stars hockey with. And just my experience being on that Reddit page, the people in there are absolutely amazing. That subreddit and that fan group, they donate all the time. I know last year they ended up donating to Edmonton when we played them. We always do what the subreddit always does. It's called a virtual hat trick whenever Dallas plays on the road, where fans would donate to the Stars Foundation the equivalent of cost of a hat, so between $30 and $40 to their foundation whenever they get a hat trick, kind of to represent the player. But it's kind of funny because game 5 ended with our captain Jamie Benn and Scheifele getting into a bit of a scuffle, and
right.
we were back and forth with the Winnipeg fan base, back and forth about just the game, and it was a heated place, and I just kind of wanted to get people together to kind of show that we were with him, we were thinking of him, right? I can't imagine what he was going through, and I just thought it was a nice gesture with that. So I actually reached out to the Winnipeg Jets subreddit and just kind of, I obviously don't know much about the Jets, and just asked if there was any charities that he was actively involved in, and I found out obviously the True North Youth Foundation, and then Kids Sport was the other one that got listed as I guess he was an ambassador. And I looked into kids sport a little bit, and any organization that gives back to underprivileged kids and helps them to get into playing hockey and other sports is wonderful. So I just made the donation, and I kind of had the same idea like when we did our virtual hat tricks. If I could get 5 or 10 people to donate, it was a good deed, and it kind of just exploded.
Yeah, it really has. And the whole 55 for 55 thing, when you see just how many donations have been made now, particularly to the True North Foundation, what are you thinking?
Well, you know what? It's been a rough year for a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of hostility in the world these days. So it really was, it was a really nice moment to see everyone kind of come together. It gave me a lot of faith back in the average person, if I'm being honest. And I can't take credit for the 55 for 55. That wasn't me who did that. And I originally even thought, it's kind of funny, it crossed my mind to do that, but in today's time, times are tough for people, so donating $55 might not have been, I would have thought we wouldn't have got as many donations if we would have asked for that. But there was another user of the Stars group who immediately, like literally seconds after I posted the original call out, donated 55 and kind of coined that 55 for 55, and it just completely took off. But overall, it made me feel wonderful. Like I said, just seeing so many people go out of their way to kind of just do a small good deed, right?
Yeah.
Put a lot of faith back in humanity for me.
Yeah. I mean, your team obviously won the series. What were you thinking when you saw some of the camaraderie between the two teams after the game?
I think it's really nice, and I think it kind of represents kind of what everyone's been saying. Some things are bigger than hockey. I can't remember who it was on Sportsnet, but someone said it, and it really coined it beautifully. Even just talking about how, our fan bases were going back and forth with Jamie Benn and Scheifele in Game 5. I think seeing Jamie Benn embrace Scheifele in the handshake line kind of speaks volumes about what we're talking about, right? You can battle on the ice and you can be heated in the arguments between the two teams, but when something like that happens, it shows what really matters, and it's kind of nice to see everyone come together and hopefully be able to provide support for the Scheifele family. I got an update from the True North Foundation. The number almost seems made up at $55,000 for
just reading that.
Scheifele for 55. But from an original $20 donation up to $55,000 for some wonderful charities in the Winnipeg area, like I'm floored by the amount of support, and I'm really thankful for everyone in the Stars Reddit for pushing that forward. I know what kind of people there in there, and like I said, I expected people to support it, but I never could have dreamed to have hundreds. I think the True North Foundation said they had almost over 800 that were specific to 55 donations in under 24 hours. So I never could have dreamed having that many people to just send a message to the Scheifele family too that people care.
That's Ryan Grimes, one of Dallas Stars fans behind 55 for 55, in conversation with CBC Manitoba's Riley Lachuk over the weekend. Now, that grew into this initiative where people started donating like crazy after the sudden passing of Mark Scheifele's father. At last check, this is the last stat I could find Sunday afternoon, more than $46,000 has come in, which, as you heard, is now shifted. Ryan's initial donation was to Kids Sport, which is Kids Sport Canada, something that Mark Scheifele is an ambassador for. And now all this money coming in honor of number 55 and the loss of his dad is going to go toward local youth programs through True North here in Manitoba. Time right now is 8:22.
The CBC Music Top 20. CBC Music Live. All right. Savor the flavor of the Francophone world on C'est Formidable. Experience the next wave of Indigenous music with Reclaim. The global sounds of frequencies. End your day or start your late night with music on CBC Radio 1. Weeknights at 11, 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
We'll have some music for you in a moment, but first we have a traffic update with Corey Funk.
Yeah, got a call from Anna on the commuter line. She was driving down the west perimeter, and she looked over and saw actually Highway 1 heading towards Headingley. So westbound towards Headingley was at a complete standstill right now. So she couldn't see why it was quite backed up. So if you're heading west on Highway 1, it seems like it's a bit of a parking lot right now. Not sure why. So if you have any updates on what's going on there, or you see something else going on, give me a call. Be like Anna. That number 204-788-3093.
We know what it's like to be stuck there. Remember
Yep.
last year we were covering zebra mussels in Clear Lake on August 1st?
Oh.
And we drove all the way back and everything was fine, good drive. And then it was like, boom.
Yeah,
Like
then you're
hitting a
just
wall. You're super slow.
stuck. So yeah, who knows what it
Yeah.
is, but it sucks to be stuck there.
Yeah, we know. Find some patience, though. Turn up the radio and enjoy the music. There sure are a lot of tunes right now all about anxiety. I find it interesting because it's something that a lot of people would have not talked about in the past. And now here we are, and a lot of artists coming to the forefront with songs all about it. One of the most famous ones, of course, that's being played over and over right now is Dochi's version, Tune Anxiety, but it's a remix of, it samples somebody that I used to know. So you probably know that from 2011, that original tune. But we have another tune here to play for you this morning. This is new music from a Winnipeg artist, Cece Lopez. And what started out as actually a folk song evolved into an R&B track. This one's about processing anxiety in a relationship. It's called Four Walls.
We are waiting, mountain lion. What's there in common? One terrified, one terrifying. I think of you often. Don't have to say, taking the best of me anyway. Even at that, you should know it. It shouldn't stress you, test you. The world is so small inside this world. You're bound to figure out you never needed me. I lay my head beside your calm. Fire took my body. A sparrow captives I wanted, but he couldn't spot me. Don't have to say, taking the best of me anyway. Even at that, you should fall away. It shouldn't stress you, test you. The world is so small inside this world. You're bound to figure out you never needed me. The world is so small inside this world. You're bound to figure out you never needed me.
Out of Winnipeg, we're listening to Cease and Four Walls. I didn't see that tempo change coming. I wonder if it's like symbolic of getting over the anxiety that the rest of the song was building through. You can check it out if you want. It is 8:27 a.m.
horse-riding Ben Cartwright selling cars.
A bonanza of beauty and value.
Sheriff Andy likes his coffee in an instant.
That's why you get that real perk flavor in your cup.
And Walter White insures your prescription.
Say my name.
From Bonanza to Batman, when fictional characters endorse brands. On Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
Well, we're 2 minutes away from your next local news with Heather Welsh. She'll have the latest on the inflation numbers that changed today, in fact, and she'll also have the latest on the wildfire situation. But Marjorie Dalhouse is, of course, the host of Radio Noon. And for the call-in portion between 12:30 and 1, she always pops into the end of the morning show and tells us what they're going to talk about. Hi.
Hi, Marcy. Well, last week we had to unfortunately postpone our regular call-in, our bird call-in, but we're going to have it today. So Rudolph Coos is going to join us once again, and we're taking all your questions about birds because, of course, who's not fascinated by them? And maybe we'll ask Rudolph, too, like what all the environmental changes mean for them as well. So call in with your questions. Maybe you've identified something you want to hear Rudolph talk about coming up today after 12:30 on Radio Noon.
I'm on Facebook on the Manitoba birding site. Mm-hmm. And so this weekend, everybody was all aflutter because somebody was like, what's this bird? It was this little chubby, oh, it's so cute, Marge. This little chubby bird. It was like black and then it had a little bit of yellow on it. It was hopping around. And then all of a sudden, everybody was like posting videos of their own sightings. And I've forgotten the name of it, but it's very cool. So birds are so active right now because it got warm so early. And it's awesome.
Well, I'm gonna ask Rudolph if he can identify that. You said a black bird with some yellow on it.
Yeah, I'll send you the pic. I'll send you the thread people were all engaged in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marcy.
So that's a nice topic for Tuesday here, right? We got to remind ourselves that we are still in spring, everything emerging, even though we had that weird early hot weather. So that's between 12:30 and 1 o'clock if you want to call in. And if you have a story, you can share. And the line, if you can't make it live, if you want to leave a message, is 788-3797. That is the line where you can call something in. That's a recorded line. I will mention in traffic that early this morning, Century between Ellis and Sargent, we had a water main break. So that could be still a problem for you. In addition, Highway number 1 West, we understood, was backed up even, as far as into Headingley when you're entering the city. So you're going to want to, I guess it will be exiting the city if it's west. But you're going to want to pay attention to that and maybe let us know. We don't have any more information about what is causing that backup. Right now, though, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it's mostly cloudy, 9 degrees right now. A cool day on the way, a high of 15. The Reeve of the RM of Lac du Bonny hopes more people will be able to return home today. But he says there are still areas of concern. As of this morning, 650 of the 800 people who were forced out have been allowed to return to their homes and assess the damage. Lauren Schinkel says in one area near Bird River, that fire is still out of control. And he says there are still the possibility of flare-ups.
In hot spots, we had helicopter buckets for the last couple of days working on one area where it's burned underground into the peat moss, and they're aggressively attacking that by digging it, and then the water helicopters buckets trying to extinguish it.
Schinkel says his emergency measures people are meeting with the province this hour to get an update. So far, 28 properties in the RM of Lac du Bonny have been destroyed. Now, a report from 2021 raised concerns about what could happen in Whiteshell Provincial Park if a massive wildfire was to hit there. The report found the end result could be devastating. Details from CBC I-Team's Caroline Bargout.
Manitoba experts simulated an out-of-control wildfire in Whiteshell Provincial Park and 20 kilometers around it. They found Falcon Lake, Rennie, and Pointe du Bois would be most at risk of catastrophic loss and damage because of one-lane narrow roadways in and out of those areas, dense tree lines, and numerous lakes that would make it difficult to escape in the event of an emergency. Officials made 10 recommendations, like creating safety zones for people to get to if they were unable to get out, and conducting controlled burns to remove pests and vegetation. But it doesn't appear any of the recommendations have been implemented. The province would only say a number of factors have changed since the 2021 report, and that many of the recommendations are ongoing. Officials also said the current fire situation will inform future steps. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Evacuees from Whiteshell Provincial Park say they still don't know when they can return. A wildfire near the Ontario border forced them out last week. Ken Pickering, president of the Whiteshell Cottagers Association, says locals are anxious but understanding.
When you're away from your home for that long, you start to want to, get back, and there's a bit of uncertainty in how long this is going to take. But I think at the same time, people are understanding that they want to return when it's safe, and they want to make sure that the firefighting crews have the ability to do what they need to do without worrying about people in the area.
In its latest update, the province says Manitoba Wildfire Service continues to respond to 13 active wildfires across the province. Now, in the city of Winnipeg, the fire ban has expired, but firefighters still urge caution. The ban went into effect May 5th, expiring yesterday. Lisa Gilmore, assistant chief with the Winnipeg firefighters, says the recent wet weather made it unnecessary to extend the ban, but conditions are still drier than normal.
We are asking everybody to still be safe and to still be considerate if they are doing outdoor fire work. So you still have to follow the regular bylaws. You still have to have a fire pit that meets requirements, and you can't use it if the winds are too high.
Fire pits, including those in city parks, are once again permitted. So are wood and charcoal burning barbecues. Well, a big drop in Canada's inflation rate. Statistics Canada this morning reports inflation fell to 1.7% last month from 2.3% in March. That is the national inflation rate, 1.7% now. The falling price of gasoline is the biggest factor, but at the same time, food prices continue to rise. In Manitoba, inflation registered at 2.1%. It had been 3%. A Winnipeg brewery owner says Manitoba and Ontario's promise to increase trade won't help beer producers. Last week, Premier Wabkanu and Ontario's Doug Ford signed a memorandum of understanding to remove interprovincial trade barriers. That includes some changes to alcohol sales between provinces. Kevin Selch at Little Brown Jug Brewing Company doesn't expect breweries will benefit.
These MOUs are encouraging, but every one of them, the one with Manitoba, the one with New Brunswick, the one with Nova Scotia, all talk about direct-to-consumer sales of alcohol, which doesn't really help the many beer producers in Canada.
Selch hopes Canada's premiers can reach a deal to allow local breweries to sell their products on store shelves across the country. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Let's get into a final look at our commuter situation. Corey, where are we at with this?
Westbound Goulet past Taché, there's a multi-vehicle collision and emergency crews blocking the westbound curb and middle lane, so keep right to get around that. As well, heard from Anna that the westbound Highway 1 between the perimeter and Headingley, right down to a complete stop, which we saw, so really backed up there. And if you see anything else, you can give me a call tomorrow. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Abby?
It's a cloudy and cool one across the southern part of the province. We're seeing temperatures between 5 and 9 today, warming up to 15. Light rain still in the Westman region. We're talking about 5 to 10 millimeters once the system goes through. Winnipeg's at 8 degrees, warming up to 15, and it's going to be warmer tomorrow, but sunnier up in the northern part of the province, heading to 16 degrees in most regions except Churchill, warming up to 11.
Jeffrey and Connie, thank you. Writing into me, telling me that bird Marge and I were talking about that seems to be appearing a lot in Manitoba this year is the American red stars. They sure are cute. But is it because migration patterns have changed, or maybe people are just noticing them more? You can find out on the noon call-in between 12:30 and 1. A quick mention of some thank yous here. Big thanks to our live team, Brad Lillies, our YouTube producer, Abby Adiyemi, our senior tech, Corey Funk on the air with us here and directing the show. In our news center, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, and Joni Nicolo, thanks to them. The associate producers and producers that worked on the show, and reporter today, Caroline Bargout, Bridget Forbes, and Chidi Akuma. Thanks to Leif Larson, our senior producer of audio here at CBC Manitoba, and Nellie Gonzalez, who's the show's producer. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for listening. Take care, be well, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow right here on CBC.